Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you here to race number 10 of the season for the RTG Aero 88 series, getting ready to go racing for 140 laps at the historic Pikes Peak International Raceway. I'm Seth Cole alongside Jessica Shelton, and Jess, the thing we keep hearing here from these drivers, it's going to be all about tire conservation.
Yep, we got about 140 laps to go, and from what we've been told, 40 laps on tires. You can only pit 4 times this whole segment. Realistic damage, it's going to be kind of a little bit of an issue, I'd imagine, especially with how this track is laid out, Seth.
So what is going to be the strategy of these drivers if we go into long green flag runs? Let's find out inside the head of a driver, as our pre-race interview tonight is going to be the driver of the 143 Dodge. That is Bob Dixon. Bob, got us up here in the booth?
Yeah, man.
All right, so you guys are preparing to take to Pikes Peak, a rather wide-turned but not very highly banked track here tonight. And we basically have heard everybody's going to be trying to preserve that right front tire. So 140 laps ahead of you. How do you save that tire?
Well, I did a couple of tire runs this afternoon, and not biting into the track low seems to be the ticket. I'll just say that much.
Would you rather prefer to run up high most of this race to prevent that wear starting, Bob, or do you think it's going to be all bottom toward if you have to make a move?
No, middle of the track.
You know, we saw that on the back straightaway going into turn 3 is where the access road is here for pit road. Have you had an opportunity to be able to test that access road? Is it difficult to get onto?
No, not at all.
Well, Bob, we wish you the best of luck here today. Hopefully you can be able to bring home a victory here tonight. We see you rolling off from the 20th position, so going to have to pass a few cars before you get up there to the front. Best of luck with it.
Yeah, my fourth gear blew as soon as I come out of the chops.
Well, hey, at least you get a restart and reset that before the actual race, and hopefully it won't blow this time.
No, that was during qual.
Ouch. All the way back there 20th. You think you can actually do something with the with what you got back there, Bob?
I don't know.
We got a lot of good drivers ahead of you.
Well, we look forward to...
Just do the best we can.
Yeah, and we look forward to watching you work your way there through the field, Bob. Best of luck to you, and hopefully we'll be talking to you at the end of this thing.
Thank you much, guys.
So on the front row for this one is actually going to be Andre Mahjong and Frank Rivard, a couple of drivers coming into this race with a lot of momentum. These drivers coming off last week when they were at Pocono, the Tricky Triangle. Mahjong finished second, Frank Rivard finished in third. So, definitely momentum on their side, but the both of them are still looking for their first win of the season.
Yeah, and I heard, I believe it was Dante. It might have been, I believe it was Dante or Doug, or that told me a little earlier on that the driver, the 35 Frank Rivard, was up near the front and actually led about 20 somewhat. So I'm not sure if it was last week or if it was supposed to be last night at the Texas race that they had a Winston Cup series that Dante Ricky runs. But Frank, if you look back at the couple races that we broadcasted as a late set, we always see Frank running mid-pack and he'll come up to the front. So we've seen him be a little bit of a factor. We've seen Andre. You remember, there's been a couple of tracks that Andre's pushed himself really early in the race, got up near the front and led and pretty much stayed up there. But the trick is to be conservative and consistent and stay up near the front and not use and burn up all your tire and everything that you got early.
We're going to give you guys the starting lineup in just a moment as these cars are gridding. But, Jess, a couple of weeks ago, we covered the Aero 88 series at RTG Motor Speedway, another track where we end up seeing some long green flag runs, and we saw really who was able to save their tires and who was overly aggressive on their tires. Looking at the starting grid here tonight, some of the names that I expected to see up inside the top 5 are actually back in the latter half of the top 10. Jeff Supka starting back in 9th. Robert Balcom starting back in 11th. Obviously, we're expecting these are guys that are going to be able to preserve their tires during the course of the run, but are you surprised that we didn't see as good of a qualifying effort out of them as we're used to seeing?
Well, I expect that Robert will probably sit there and tell us later on when we interview him. Most likely, I'm expecting to get an interview if he doesn't wreck out that he probably made a mistake or something on his qualifying run, most likely. But, I'm not really surprised at, where Robert really is. I mean, Robert, we've seen Robert time and time again. He comes right up to the pack after a while. He drives, takes his time. He manages to find himself up there. But what I'm looking at, Seth, is you've got this one driver that's actually starting in the top 5. Actually, 2 drivers that I'm looking at specifically in this top 10 is Grant Wesley and Jeremy Jeffries, because we saw what Jeremy Jeffries is capable of as well last time we had a broadcast on the intermediate track.
Yeah, Jeffries took the checkered flag 2 weeks ago at RTG Motor Speedway, and Grant Wesley runs a rather limited schedule here in the Aero 88 series and going to be rolling off from the 4th position. The lineup for tonight is as follows. Andre Mahjong, Frank Rivard, they're the front row. Sean Kerrigan and Grant Wesley line up in row 2. Andre Charest and Dave Melson, row 3. Jeremy Jeffries, we just talked about him. He's rolling off 7th alongside of Ron Lucet. And then Jeff Supka and Richard Martin going to make up the top 10. Robert Balcom's going to roll off 11th alongside of Orlando Leboy. Row 7's where we find the points leader Dante Ricky. We'll get to that in a moment. He's alongside of Jim Glaude. Mike Brush and Stefan Martel in row 8. Row 9 is Jack DeSalt and Chuck McClure. Robbie Nisus and Bob Dixon complete the top 20. Rest of the drivers that took time, 21st Doug Cady, 22nd Benoit Plord. Drivers that did not take time are Bob LaChance, Chris Elliott, Brian Wolf, Terry Bauman, and Zach Freemount as the green flag is in the air, and Andre Mahjong going to lead him down to turn 1.
Yeah, and I'm expecting how this is going to go, Seth. I'm expecting Andre to try to pull and push himself to grab a commanding lead, but the one issue we've seen with Andre is that he'll get up there and he'll pull away, but he eats through his tires so quickly that he'll start falling back. As we see him right now, he's pulling to a nice gap over Frank Rivard. He's trying to extend that lead as it is right now.
Going to lead the first lap of this race is Andre Mahjong in the 27. They are double wide behind them. That is Jeremy Jeffries trying to make a move to the inside of, I believe that is Grant Wesley. Jeff Supka right there as well. So, and I think that was Wesley getting the wall there off of turn 2. Another car further back got the wall. I think that was Doug Cady. That's going to be a running theme here tonight with drivers having difficulty getting off the corner, and it's realistic damage.
Well, Seth, we talked about it before we even went on air. We were talking about this track. I have never been online racing at this track. I don't think I've only seen this track maybe once or twice in our offline stuff that is presented to us by like really dedicated fans and stuff in our game. But you told me you've been on this track, different version, but you've been on this track before, so you know what to expect off that corner.
It's a really strange track, is Pikes Peak, because you'll actually see if you follow these cars down to the corner, The car kind of goes over a hump, dips down as you go down into the center of the corner, and then there's a hump on the exit of turn 2 and turn 4. You'll see kind of right there, if you follow the 15 of Sean Kerrigan, the elevation change, it comes back up. And it's on that elevation change from going uphill out of the corners that unsettles the race car. If you get back to the throttle too soon, there's no banking to lean on.
42 got really loose. Don't know, did he lose it?
He saved it. Smoke was over there in turn 4, but a great save by Orlando Lavoie, able to keep that car underneath him. We remain green.
And you were talking about the elevation change, Seth. During that little bump in elevation, does that mess up your entry and your exit off each corner every single lap if you hit that?
Oh, absolutely. I think the one word that's overused the most when you talk about a track like Pikes Peak is finesse. Because it's all about how you approach the corner, how easy you get back into the throttle, and the time to when you get back to the throttle. Because too soon, you're going to hit that outside wall, as we saw Grant Wesley do just a moment ago.
Going through this pack right now, so it seems like most of the front runners are trying to settle themselves single file. Andre has extended his lead a little bit, and I don't know if this is a good idea by the driver of the 27 or not. What do you think?
I'm not really certain if it is, because as we've stated, the fact that, you know, this is a tire killer, and if he's running lap times that are comfortable to him, then maybe he'll be all right. But if he's really pushing it, he's going to find himself getting eaten up by some of these guys that are saving tires. And I saw just moments ago, the 75 of Andre Charest, he actually went down onto the apron into 3 and 4. I don't think that's actually a viable line here, as we've got skid marks up there in turns 3 and 4. I don't see a caution out or anything. I don't know if maybe that's just skid marks from earlier on in warm-up that haven't actually disappeared from our screen, but looked like everybody towards the back was okay.
I don't see anyone too far off pace at this moment. I am scrolling through, and I want to say something real quick as we look at the 15 of Sean Kerrigan battling with the 11 of Jeff Soup. Soup is going to go right around and take a position and move up to the 3rd spot, looking for more for Frank Rivard. Oh, there is a car way up there. I just saw smokes out there. It's the 43 of Richard Martin.
And they're going to take him double and 3 wide there. Martin able to keep it straight, so we still remain green.
What I wanted to bring up to your attention, Seth, Zach Freeman. Right on board with him for a minute.
Find the 6.
Listen to him when he goes in these corners.
All right, so we can find the 6 car here. Oh, there he is.
What do you hear?
Like that car might be clutching.
And look where he is on the current leaderboard. He's not up near the top 5, not near the top 10. He's way back there. I think he's already planning his strategy to work his way up there through pit strategy. Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's interesting because it's not that easy to actually clutch in corners at a track like this. Already mentioned about the fact the car kind of bogs down, and I've noticed a lot of times when I clutch through the corners, the car doesn't really want to turn. It actually just rides into the corner the way it wants to go. So credit to Zach Fremont being able to figure out how to be able to clutch in these corners and still have it hook the inside line. His pace isn't off that bad either. I mean, he's running right now lap times maybe about 4 1,000ths off his best lap, so still running pretty consistent lap times.
I wanna point out something. Supta passed Rivard, pulled away, and he is caught. The 27 was 0.3 last time. Now it's 0.283 back. Supta is gunning for that top position early.
Yeah, we're only 12 laps into this race, and he had to start from the 9th position, already up to 2nd, and to your point, now knocking on the door for the race lead. Jeff Supka trying to come back from a performance he probably wants to forget. Last week at Pocono, led quite a number of laps in that race, but got hit with a EOL penalty at the end of that race and ended up finishing out the race. I believe it was officially in the 15th position.
Oh, side-by-side contact between the 87 and the 007 between Benoit Plord and Doug Cady there coming off that corner. It's just really, really, really tight racing stuff. You mentioned it earlier. They push up a little bit, do they not?
Oh, definitely. That car on that inside line. I think we saw moments ago when Jeff Supka made the pass for 3rd place on Sean Kerrigan. He actually used the outside line Contact there between Katie and the 57 of Stefan Martel. Yeah, the outside line is the easier place to run because you can pin that car down the inside that pushes up. We saw right there, Katie tried to do it. Martel slid up, and there was the contact, but a great save by Doug Katie. Got a car back here in the field. The 54 of Robbie Nices. You see him running some special tribute colors here tonight, the white and pink on his number 54. And just, I believe you were talking with him earlier, a special tribute scheme that he's running here tonight at Pikes Peak.
Absolutely, that's a scheme specially designed for his oldest daughter, turning 23 years old, and she's got a couple of issues like CP and epileptic issues, which I'm very familiar with the epilepsy, being part of the epileptic issue myself. I mean, it's great to see that, you know, that there's a tribute to that car for that birthday girl specifically just for the like tremendous issue she's overcome. I mean, if you look on the back of that, it says, you know, basically 97, pretty much not gonna give up at all, period, and still battling right now, still there. Great story behind it. It's just so much overcoming, perseverance, overcoming every obstacle, and she's still with us today. And that's a great story in of itself, Seth. There's more behind it, which I don't think we have a lot of time to go into, but it's just a great backstory on everything that's happened in the life of that young woman. I mean, I can't imagine what they deal with specifically, but I mean, just take the time to have a car for someone who's gone through enough, let alone your daughter or a family member, to go out there and represent. That speaks really high volumes.
And, you know, obviously as commentators, we try and be as unbiased as possible, but when you see something like that, it's hard not to, you know, in the back of your heart, want to pull for a driver like that. And obviously Robbie Nice is currently running at the back of the pack, but who knows? Depending on what happens here in this race, maybe he's playing some strategy here as well. And
keeping it safe.
Yeah, I know. And you know, you and I, we've run tribute schemes before too. And as a racer, when you're out there running a tribute scheme like that, there's actually an extra motivation as well to do well as also, rather than just going out there in a regular scheme. So obviously we hope to see Robbie Nices be up here at the front near the end of this race. That gap for the race lead, Jess, we were watching it close up. It's kind of stalled out now to about 2.5 car lengths. So is Supka just biding his time for the moment, maybe hoping the 27 does use up his stuff so it'll be an easier pass? Or do you think now he's used up his tires that the two of them are kind of unequal?
Well, I think the 27 is still pushing a little bit. Supka went to a 0.3, now he's back to a 0.2. As you look, you can see that the 27 is running a little bit of a higher line than what Supka is. Supka is going a little bit deeper down there, so it might be wearing his tires more. He's entering really high. Remember, we saw this from him and Grant Wesley, I mean not Grant, but Robert Balcom, I believe, at ISM in Phoenix, remember?
Yes,
moving up
right.
high, making that corner, diming it down like that, and there's a yellow flag.
Got a caution out here for the first time, and there is smoke over in turn 4.
Zach Freeman's on pit road.
And it could very well have been Zach Freeman in the 6. The only car I can see that looks like it would have been the cause of this yellow flag, and he was one of the guys we were looking at to see what was going to happen in terms of pit strategy. He was saving fuel, he was clutching into the corners, and this caution comes out about 18 laps earlier than these drivers were expecting to make their first pit stop. It looks like they all are coming down pit road.
Terry Ballman's staying out in the 69 machine.
That's interesting because Terry Ballman, you know, there's obviously the Aero 88 series going on. We've got the Challenger series that's going on. Benoit Plourde for the moment is pretty well got that in hand, 11 points over Terry Ballman. But Terry comes into tonight's race as well. There's a third series going on, the Charger series. 6 drivers moving on after tonight. And Terry Ballman comes into this race 1 point behind Orlando LeBoy for that final spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about RTG that we've noticed, Seth. There's always a series within a series within a series battling.
It's so hard to keep
up with.
It's
Constant.
Take a look and see if we can find out what happened to Zach Freeman to bring out this caution. And it was indeed him. He was battling at the time with Jim Gloud in the 72. I don't know if the two of them make some contact here or if it's going to end up just being the 6 going around himself. He's going into turn 3. Oh, yeah, it just looks like the car steps out on him. Remember when you were talking about Orlando LeBoy going down there on the apron? Looks like a couple of drivers having difficulty with that, where it's like the car wants to turn down onto the apron below the yellow line, and apparently there's no grip on that paint line. 6 car just snaps around, nowhere for anybody else to really be able to go. Fortunately, they all were able to avoid him.
An update on pit road strategy here. Ballman and Bob Dixon and Robbie Nisus come down. Zach Fremont is now moving his machine. But I want to point out, Grant Wesley stayed out. Ron Luzier is right behind him now.
Yeah, and you remember, as I just said, we were kind of projecting that these drivers were more than likely going to be coming down pit road in 40-lap increments just based on what we've heard in terms of how far these tires can go. We're a little bit short of making it that first 40-lap stint, and Grant Wesley, he's coming into this race not really battling for the championship. We've already alluded to a limited schedule, so he hasn't been able to run full time. So I think right now, if you're the 88, what you're basically doing is looking still towards lap 40, so that way you only have to make 3 pit stops in this race. I'm not so certain for some of these other drivers that they're still not going to have to make 3 more pit stops.
I want to point out what I'm looking at, Seth. I noticed that while I was scrolling around the field, the 27's back here. 27, I'm guessing, has a penalty, and Zach Fremont has just retired with the gearbox issue.
A tough break there for Zach Fremont.
Andre Marjan, yeah, I think he had a penalty, so because he's going to the back.
27, who was leading the first 21 laps of this race, now going to be starting towards the rear of the field. So a tough break there for a guy who started on pole. Going to turn the race lead over to Grant Wesley. He's going to have Ronald Lucet to his outside. Third place is going to be, I believe, Jeff Supka. Yep, I was waiting for our ticker to update here. Frank Rivard, 4th. Jeremy Jeffries, 5th. Then it's Balcom, Dante, Ricky, Bob LaChance, Jack DeSalt, and Chuck McClure, the top 10. Wanted to bring this up. There's been so much action going on here in the first 25 laps. Last week at Pocono really was a doozy in terms of shaking the point standings up, because we now have 3 drivers coming into this race separated by double digits, or make that single digits rather. Dante Ricky, the winner last week, now inherits the points lead, 2 points over Chuck McClure and 5 points over Robert Balcom. And all 3 drivers in the field here tonight, all 3 running right now inside of the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, we got this restart coming, though, real quick, Seth. I want to see if we can get this restart out of the way, because we got cold tires right off the back, and I'm wondering how these drivers are going to handle it right off the back. I don't know if we're going to have a caution immediately, or if they're going to be able to get their ducks in a row.
Grant Wesley, who did not come to pit road, I do not believe, is going to lead us to the green flag. Leads him down into turn 1, leaves him to battle for second. Not much of a contest there. Supka, boy, what kind of grip did Supka find through 1 and 2? Because all of a sudden, he's looking for the lead.
Jeremy Jeffries is right there, too. He's moved his way back up along with Robert Balcom and Dante Ricky running 7th right away, looking for a hole to get somewhere and move forward already, Seth.
I'm almost wondering if Grant Wesley and Ron Lucet might have gone with 2 tires on their pit stop, because Lucet had no grip
I don't think
going
Grant
through 3
pit,
and 4.
did he? I don't think Grant pit.
He might not have, and Lucet might not have as well, because Lucet just had no grip through 3 and 4. It went way up the track there, as the battle's going to be for 3rd. Frank Rivard looking to the inside of Jeremy Jeffries.
Mike Brush just hit the wall kind of, I'm not sure how hard, but he hit it decently off of turn 2.
Sorry to cut you off, but Frank Rivard with a moment, and he's going to loop it around.
3 wide, and Benoit
out.
Ford bumped him at the back end of that. Wow. Just like, wow. Like I said, Seth, we were going to talk about the points situation in a moment, but like I said, I wanted to double check, make sure they got their ducks in a row, and they got a little bit too much there.
You talked about 3 wide coming off of turn 4. I think that was Benoit Plourde that almost hit Frank Rivard, and Brian Wolf, I believe, might have spun around as well in the front straightaway.
No, Benoit Plourde was right behind Mike Brush, and like I said, Mike Brush had hit the turn 2 wall when that incident happened in front with Rivard and everyone. It's like, and I just saw Benoit Plourde almost hit the back of Mike Brush, and I'm thankful that they got through it. It could have been a lot worse of a wreck.
Yeah, it was really lucky that the 35 of Frank Rivard, that he was able to get on the brakes and not really come down any further. Otherwise, he more than likely would have hit a couple of those drivers that were running that top side. We're going to take a look at this. We saw it basically happen live. I mean, that car just had absolutely no grip, no stability going into turn 3 as he was battling for the time for third place with Grant Wesley.
Is that a combination, you think, of the cold tire issue early on? Because, like I said, I've never run this track, so I wouldn't know.
Well, the thing that's really confusing me, and this might actually be playing into it, I'm not familiar, as you said, with this version of the track. I'm almost wondering if the LPs that were put into this Pikes Peak have the car almost kind of automatically turned down to the inside in turn 3, because we've seen a lot of drivers go down to that apron in turn 3 here in the early stages. If you look at Frank Rivard, it's almost like his car is turning there and he counter steers it. That's what causes the car to start snapping loose. So I think there might be some kind of an LP thing that's going on down in turn 3 for these guys.
Are you referring to like something regarding like what I warned you about from the league over at Fast with the Rockingham thing coming into pit road, like how it wants to pull down?
Yeah, because you've got that access road over there in turn 3 that they have to take. And I'm almost wondering if there might be a slight transition. Remember, folks, this is all speculation, but I'm wondering if there's like a transition from the LP on the track and the LP to the access road coming to pit road that are intersecting just a bit. And it's causing some of these drivers, causing their cars to turn left when they're not expecting it.
Could be a really interesting theory.
A little bit of contact there as Brian Wolf and Robbie Nices get a little bit of damage out of this one after things were stacking up with drivers trying to avoid the spinning 35 of Frank Rivard. Doesn't look like extensive damage on any of these drivers. They should be able to continue on. But second caution of the night here at Pikes Peak International is Jeff Supka is going to be the race leader, and looks like
Grant
Jeremy
Wesley
Jeffries will be
stayed out.
second.
Grant Wesley and Robert, they stayed. I mean, not Robert, but Ronald. Ronald and Grant stayed back out against us. So I mean, must not be affecting them that much regarding their current situation. Ronald's actually coming in pit road, but Grant's staying out. Going back to what you were speaking about before, now that we got a calm moment to talk about it, you're talking about the points. Well, remember last week when Dante won, he jumped 2 spots up to the point lead, right? And you got Robert Balcom, he dropped 2. And now you've got Jeremy Jeffries +1. He cracked inside the top 10. Benoit Ford is now up in 8th. Chris Elliott dropped down 1 to 9th. I mean, there's a lot of positions, and honestly, it's pretty tight points-wise still. I mean, if you go back to 10th, that's 60 points behind the leader. That's still a pretty good tight battle overall for the top 10, in my opinion.
It is. And, this is only the 10th race of the season. There's still 5 races to go. And if somebody that's, from about 6th place on down through 10th in the standings gets onto a hot streak of podium finishes, there's no doubt that they could end up heading into the season finale at Michigan with someone that came into tonight's race outside of the top 5 battling for that championship. Still a long ways to go in the season for these guys.
Looks like we're going to be going to green here.
Yep, Supka is going to be the one to get us underway with Jeremy Jeffries to his outside. Robert Balcom and Grant Wesley, they're going to make up the second row, followed by Dante Ricky and Chuck McClure. So your top 3 in the points now up inside of the top 6 as lap 31 about to be completed. We're on to lap 32.
And we said it before. Is it going to bother Robert Balcom starting where he was? Nope.
Nope, apparently not. Didn't take him very long. Didn't take Jeff Supka very long to work their way from outside the top 5 now to 1 and 2. Battle's going to be for 4th. Ooh, Grant Wesley way up the track there through 3 and 4. Almost opened up the door for Chuck McClure to be able to take him 3 wide.
How much wear do you think Grant has on his tires right now?
I mean, I don't think he's been to pit road yet this entire race. I think he's still one of those drivers targeting lap 40. I mean, look at how much ground he's losing right there through 1 and 2.
Oh, someone hit Jack DeSalt. He hit the wall really hard off of turn 2.
And that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on here, as well as there's the 51 of Bob LaChance going way up the track. Is with the realistic damage, depending on how hard a hit you take into that outside wall, it's certainly going to affect your car speed-wise. We're 3 wide back here with DeSalt Doug Cady and Brian Wolf. Thank heavens they settled it out to double wide before we got to turn 1.
Now, back here on the 36, we find the 27, who was our leader early on, led about a good more portion, like what was it, about 22, 23 laps before that first caution came out, and he's mired back here in traffic, so he's trying to push himself pretty hard to get up to the pack now as well. I mean, Seth, if you make a small little mistake, like Andre Marjan did regarding pit road, how difficult is that to come back, especially through this whole field, knowing how far you are back with tire wear, realistic damage, and whatnot? Like, how hard is that?
Well, we've seen how that inside line is really difficult to be able to use as a passing line, especially longer into a run because the car wants to push up with all the heat you're building in the right front tire. And for Andre Mahjong, the tough break for him is with being back here. Yeah, he's got a car that's fast enough to pass these drivers, but the two things he has to worry about. One, how much time is he going to lose to the leaders in having to methodically work his way through the field? And two, how much tire is he going to have left after fighting his way up to the front to be able to challenge to get back to the front of the field to the race lead?
As we see Andre now passing Grant Wesley, Wesley is continuing to fall. He's right around the 20th position and is looking to lose a couple more spots too. Now the battle for that position is it's for 20th. Ronald Lucia just passed Grant. So yeah, Grant needs to get some tires quickly on that machine.
Yeah, I think Grant might have possibly been relying on another caution to save him. I think the 88 is looking, as I said, for that target lap of 40 before taking on his first set of tires. Everybody else has been to pit road and taken on a set of tires, including the 62 of Ron Lucet. He pitted under the last caution. He and Grant, up to that point, were the only two that had not been to pit road prior to the start of the race.
And meanwhile, up near the front, Soup just pulled up to a lead. Balcom's just sitting there stalking. He's just sitting there stalking him, not really closing it in too much, but enough to keep pace with him. I mean, I think Robert's just biding his time, waiting for Sipton to make a mistake or waiting for the tires to fall off and then ready to pounce at the last one. Because that's how Robert is. We've seen him constantly just mind his race, relax, just run the track. Don't worry about where everyone else is. Just worry about himself, his strategy, and eventually he will work his way up. And that's what he always does, and he's running second. I think he's comfortable.
Yeah, I think he is too. And I'm actually looking right now at the lap times, and he's not running that far off of Jeff Supka. They're running identical lap times. Last time by, Supka ran a 27.922, Balcom ran a 9.23. So they're right on point in terms of lap times. So there's definitely no deficit of speed between these two. I think it all comes down to Supka was trying to open up as big a gap as possible here. Balcom, on the other hand, is trying to preserve his tires.
Well, so far we've got 40 laps down. We hit that 40 lap mark. I'm wondering when Grant's going to peel off and come in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's going to have to think about coming to pit road at least in the next 10 laps or so, because even if his tires can make it the 40 laps, we know that it's about, 45 to 50 laps that these drivers can make it on fuel. So, if the tires don't get them, the fuel's going to have to draw them to pit road eventually.
And Aero 88 CTS physics, so it's not going to, it's not going to fall off that much. Oh yeah, it's falling off. Plus, you got that back stretch and that front stretch. It may not be a big plate track or an auto club or a Michigan, but there is draft, and that does kick it into that fuel as well.
Certainly does. We're looking at Chuck McClure here in the 17, right now running in the 7th spot, trying to reel in Sean Kerrigan for 6. Got a nice exit there out of turn 2. Might be looking for 6 down here into 3. McClure coming
there he goes.
2 points behind Dante Ricky, and with that pass, he now moves into the 6th position and would find himself 4 points behind Dante, according to the live running order that we have. And Jim Glaude just made a pass, actually, so make it 3-point separation between Dante Ricky and Chuck McClure. How about the 72? Jim Glaude, good performance here tonight early for the Mellow Yellow machine.
Yeah, he usually does pretty decent on these tracks. I mean, we've seen him up near the front half the race, and then but always seems to fight that machine. I don't know what it is. It's like a little bit of a curse or something. So I mean, he'll do well. So we got to make sure that curse doesn't happen to him again this time. Meanwhile, want to give a quick update on a few of these other drivers here that had a little bit of an issue earlier on. The 42 of, I said 42. I apologize for that. I meant, I was talking about 42. I'm sorry. Orlando LeBoy. We saw him get out of shape. He's rebounded really nicely to come back up, battling in 9th position right now. And we talked about that other series that's going on, Seth. So the boys really got to try to keep it up there.
Yeah, let's actually bring people up to speed on the point standings for that. The Charger series here for the Aero 88. Right now, Dante Ricky looks like he's easily going to move on. He came into this race about 46 points ahead of the cut line. Chuck McClure came into the race 20 points ahead. 15 points ahead was Bob LaChance. So I think those three are definitely moving on. Down where the question marks are, Sean Kerrigan came in plus 13, Andre Marjan came in plus 5, and you just mentioned Orlando LeBoy. He comes in the cutoff line driver. The drivers that he needs to worry about in this race are the 69 of Terry Bauman and the 9 of Chris Elliott. They are 1 and 7 points respectively behind him. For Bob Dixon and Benoit Plord, who were the remaining 10 drivers, the 9th and 10th drivers, I think they're kind of almost in a must-win situation here to move on to the round of 6. But currently, as things run right now, it looks like LeBoy does have that 6th and final spot. Chris Elliott running a couple of positions behind him in 12th.
I want to touch up on that in a moment, but just let me know. Balcom's caught Supta.
And so has Jim Glaude, who actually just got around Jeremy Jeffries, moving into the 3rd position. So all of a sudden, we've got a battle for the race lead. And I actually just want to amend something as well. I said I thought probably with drivers coming to pit road when they did back under that first caution, they were probably still going to have to make 3 pit stops. But when I did the calculations in my head, if they had made the 3 pit stops at the start of the race, they would have had 20 laps to go after that 3rd pit stop. So I think these drivers that came to pit road on lap 25, they should be able to make it the rest of the way on just 2 more pit stops.
Grant Wesley, he has dropped to 19.5 seconds back. He's now going into turn 1, about to enter turn 2. Leaders are on the other side of the track, Seth. Getting to another point we were just mentioning a moment ago before I had to cut back from that for Balcom catching Supta. You gotta look at Kerrigan. Kerrigan's running 7th right now. And you got Chris Elliott running 12th. Terry Bauman, we saw him stay out and get an extra point for leading a lap. I mean, LeBoy's really, really in a tough spot because he's running 9th. And, I mean, he's mired with a lot of good drivers around him. So he cannot afford any mistakes if he wants to move on to the next round.
And I really think that if we're talking in terms of mistakes, I think we have to look no further than pit road, because we saw Andre Marjan started on the pole, led the first 20 laps of this race, and under caution, he ended up having a speeding penalty and having an EOL. I can't imagine what these drivers are going to have to deal with in terms of trying to back it down to pit road speed if they have to pit under green.
Yeah, I mean, what is pit speed for this track?
I might be wrong. I think it's 40 miles per hour. It might be 45 for these drivers, but I'm not 100% certain.
And then you're talking about the LP file. If that LP file is in there, green flag stops could cause a huge factor if we get to that point in this race.
Yeah, we talked with Bob Dixon pre-race, and he said it didn't really feel like much of an issue getting onto pit road. We'll have to see if that's going to be the case for other drivers. As boy, Jeff Supka dealing with a couple of issues there. Looked really loose on exit off of turn 4. He's also dealing with a little bit of connection issues here as well. And we may actually have a battle for second, but we have a battle for the lead, because Jim Glaude has closed up the gap between himself and Robert Balcom.
36 of Jack Dussault has entered pit road, Seth. I want to point out that they're catching Grant Wesley, about to get ready to lap him in the next few laps.
Yeah, I think Grant's in trouble. I think that he'll be able to pick up some time when he eventually comes to pit road on the fresher tires, but how much is the question, as opposed to how much he has lost here under this green flag run. I think he put himself into a little bit of a pickle with his decision not to come down pit road, at least under one of the 2 cautions we had, to take on some tires, and he's going to go a lap down now before they even get into 3.
We were talking about how Supta was holding on to the top spot, and how, I mean, look, he pulled away early on. We saw him pull out to a nice, comfortable sized lead, and then now Robert slowly reeled him back in. Do you think he's pretty much used up all of his stuff, and now Robert's just dogging him, just stalking, ready to pounce now?
That could be the case, but I've also seen how drivers, they'll pull away, and then they'll go into conservation mode, and then when the second place driver starts reeling them in, then they kick it back up to high gear again, because they've been able to save a little bit of tire. I don't know if that's the case right now. Seems like there's definitely a game of cat and mouse going on here between Supka and Robert Balcom. And don't forget, too, that Supka was kind of playing some games with Andre Marjan in the early stage of this race as well. We kind of thought as soon as he was making forward momentum, he was going to get right up there and past the 27, but he didn't. He kind of waited. He bided his time before he eventually made the pass on Andre. So I think there's definitely some mind games going on with these drivers, knowing that they're more than likely about, roughly 5 to 10 laps away from making what would be their first green flag pit stop of the day.
Papa Chance came in and pit too, Seth. He's 2 laps down with Jack DeSalle. Grant Wesley's 1 lap down and he has not hit pit road. He is really losing a lot of time. So I'm wondering if this is even a really good call. I mean, he's currently the only car a lap down. However, Brian Wolf, Frank Rivard, Robbie Nices, they're coming up for the leaders to, eventually catch to lap. I mean, I don't know if this is a smart call. If it were me, I would have come into pit and just gone out there and hope to get a wave around or something and try to get a lucky dog. I mean, he's losing too much time staying out there.
I mean, we talked about the fact, though, that he's running a limited schedule here, doesn't run all the races, doesn't run full time, so might have been trying to pull a little bit of a Hail Mary strategy. As here comes Robert Balcom, gets a nice run out of turn 2. He's going to try and take the lead here into 3. And, Sipka stuck on that outside line, no grip. Not only going to lose the lead, but Jeremy Jeffrey is going to move by for the second spot. So there is absolutely no grip outside of that dark gray lane.
Yeah, we saw Supta a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure what it was at RTG or if it was at, or I mean, it might have been, I'm not sure what was it, RTG or MTR? But I know at ISM, I mean, remember, Supta was trying to find a lot of stuff on that high side. Even though you're not supposed to go up there, he was the only one really pushing it on that high side. And apparently there ain't nothing up there on this track.
Apparently not. Jeremy Jeffries, I think, was another driver that utilized that second groove quite a bit at RTG Motor Speedway.
Supta has come into pit, Seth, and Brian Wolf as well.
Does this force the hands now of these other drivers that are up in the front? I mean, this is around lap 60. These drivers all were on pit road back on lap 20.
The 36 of Jack DeSalle hit the apron coming off of that corner. I mean, there's contact. I don't know who that was. I was trying to scroll to get there on that corner, but I know someone just got really loose and hit. I don't know if it was contact or not, but someone hit that wall sideways. There's a lot of smoke in that corner, so.
Trying to see who that possibly could have been. Maybe the 17 of Chuck McClure.
It was a purple machine, from what I can tell. I'm not sure whether it was Chris Elliott or McClure, but I know it was a purple machine.
I'm going to guess it was McClure because I saw him way up the track there on the front straightaway. And it looks like he may actually be coming to pit road this time.
No,
it was
not.
McClure. You can see the right side damage on that car. It was definitely McClure that got the wall up there in 4.
Oh, that was a scary moment. I thought that he was going to go around and come straight down with the way that car was angled. I'm surprised that he was able to hold on to that. I mean, these drivers here, they know what they're doing. But, I mean, what time do you sit there and say, okay, I'm too far back, I have to push it, I have to go now?
Yeah, that's the big question, especially with the fact now that it's looking like this thing is suddenly into a long green flag run, so there's no guarantee that another caution is going to come out and bunch these drivers up. I'm really worried. If I look at our running order right now at drivers back there like Jim Glaude, Benoit Plourde, Bob Dixon, Frank Rivard, Robbie Nices, because they're running about 10 seconds behind the race leader, they're definitely going to lose a lap when they come to pit road, and I'm not necessarily certain they're going to get that lap back when everything cycles around.
They might lose a little bit more than a lap, too, because they've got a whole bunch of traffic in between them and to get the lap back. I mean, you have fresh tires, but it's kind of pointless when you can't go anywhere with them because of traffic. You have to keep backing up. And I just saw Jeremy Jeffries give a bump to Balcom on the backstretch saying, hey, I'm here. I mean, this is almost like a repeat of a couple broadcasts ago when we saw these two battle.
Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, and this is kind of a little bit of irony, I believe Robert Balcom last week at Pocono led 18 laps. Jeremy Jeffries led 8. They led their car numbers. That's ironic. And those two now trying to battle for the top spot. And as the two of them are battling for each other, that 84 of Dante Ricky is looming back there as well in the 3rd position.
Dante, if you notice how Dante runs, he doesn't really seem to be a big threat early on to dominate, but he's always seeming to be right around that top 10 mark and just playing it cool, calm, collect, and we always see Dante. Dante doesn't always win, but the one thing that he's got on his side is consistency, the ability to stay out of trouble and just ride and be there when it counts, and so far so good for that driver number 84, Seth.
Yeah, it's been a good season for him as well. Coming into this race with 3 wins, Barber Motorsports Park, a short track, the mile and a half of Texas. That was about 3 weeks ago. And then, of course, last week at Pocono. And I would have to think that last week at Pocono, winning that race gives you a little bit of an edge coming into this one as well, because we know that Pocono is another track with 3 different turns where it's all about tire conservation. So I would think that a lot of things you learned at Pocono, you could bring over here and apply at Pikes Peak.
Well, I'm also thinking has Dante finally hit his stride, Seth? I mean, if you go back and look, Dante has been on a tear in every single league he's been in, going up battling for like the top titles now with the likes of Grant Wesley, Robert Falcom as of late. I mean, he's making his claim now, like it's his time, and he's going to show that he deserves it. I mean,
Yeah.
he's racked all those consistencies up as we see Falcom kind of get a little bit loose off that corner. He had to back off, and all of a sudden here's Jeffries. Jeffries has had a chance to pass him several times, and he's just been staying in the line. Now he opens the door for these faster lap machines to get back around. I mean, that's kind of smart on Jeffries' part. Yeah, Balcom's pitting.
Here he
Balcom's
comes.
coming in.
Falcom's going to come down pit road here
That
in
might
the
be why.
18.
I was just thinking that maybe, like Jeffries, like, I'm just going to stay out of the way. I'm just going to ride.
Boy, Balcom came flying in there, but of course these drivers, they take the opportunity under the practice and warm-up sessions to be able to practice hot pitting, see if they can average the lap or the speed out to be able to not get a black flag, and we'll have to see if that indeed is going to work for Balcom.
Jeffries is coming down pit road this time now, Seth, and remember this is lap 69 coming to 70, so that sets him up for another 40 laps right there. That'll put him to 110. And then,
Wow, came flying in.
Well, hi Frank, how are you?
Yeah, very lucky there was a car length of space between Jeffries and the outside wall there.
But going back to what I was saying though, if they come in now, like we see Jeffries is in, that's going to put him about 110 laps. Oh, he's got a bit of a checkup there. But it puts him to 110. Then go 40 laps. He'll have that extra set of tires, I think. I mean, he has one more set, I believe, he can play with, to mess around with. Because remember, I believe he took tires early on during that first round of cautions or second caution that came out. So he's got already kind of down that set. But I mean, Seth, long term, if he stays and does what he did this last run, he'll be good to go to the end if we have one more pit stop.
Yeah, definitely should be. And I think if my projections are correct, that extra set you're talking about that they would have it for the final 40 lap stint, because most of these drivers now have kind of taken and put the race entirely in reverse. What would have been 40, 40, 40, and 20 now is turned into 20, 40, 40, and 40 because of the timing of that early caution.
Well, like I said, if they come back in on lap 110, that only leaves them 30 laps to run. So they're going to be in a little bit of a better shape. 10 less laps to worry about, I would imagine.
Ron Lucet and Andre Mahjong, the two of them stayed out. They are now on pit road. Race lead's actually going to turn over to the 9 of Chris Elliott. You see the time he's losing with the faster cars around him, but a valuable bonus point there for Chris, who comes into this race in the Charger Series. Currently 7 points back, so definitely trying to, I would assume, counter the lap-led bonus point that Terry Bauman got earlier in his quest to try and get up there and wrestle at one of those 6 positions away from Orlando Leboy.
And looking back at the, remember we had that little issue that took place earlier on with Chuck McClure? 24th, 2 laps down. He is currently buried himself in a position where it's going to be really difficult for him to come out, especially with all the lap cars in front of him.
And Chuck McClure last week headed into Pocono, second in the points, had a great top 5 run, actually worked his way from 27th to finish in the 5th position, but stayed second in the points. 2 points back coming into this one, and to your point, with spending that extra time on pit road, having to get that right side damage repaired, that's going to lose him a lot of track position, and I'm not really even certain, being trapped 2 laps down with a lot of drivers ahead of him, currently -1, as I think we've now cycled these pit stops around. I don't know if he's got a chance to get back in the lead lap and pick up spots.
Chris Elliott still out along with Bob Dixon.
And I think right now, according to our telemetry, when the 9 and the 143 do come to pit road, it's actually going to turn the race lead back over to the 11 of Jeff Supka, who's
I
right
do
now
want
running in
to.
the
I do want to give a
third position.
call. I do want to give a call out real quick, Seth, to person who's fourth in the overall standing, 17 points back. We talk about him every so often, just running his own race, and he sometimes is there at the end. Sometimes he gets a top 5. I mean, look at where the 13 of Dave Nelson is. 8th place, minding his own business. I mean, it's good to see that he's able to put these great runs together all over and over and over like he has. I mean, it's putting a lot of I wouldn't say like I don't know what the word is. I'm really trying to figure the use here, Seth. I mean, he's just got a lot of good consistency. I mean, Dante's got good consistency as well, but I mean, Nelson, fourth in points, minding his own business. He's there, and he's not really forcing anything at the moment either.
Yeah, the term I usually use for a driver like that is under the radar. It's one of those guys that you really don't take notice of the entirety of the race, and then you get to around crunch time, second half of the race, or even as late as 20 to go, and you're thinking, man, where did they come from? I mean, Dave Melson, you said, was in 8th. I think he's now going to translate up to 6th with both Chris Elliott and Bob Dixon coming to pit road. So, yeah, very solid outing for him. I mean, he's only 17 points back as well. We talk about the fact that it's a close battle between the top 3 because it's single digits, but 17 points, that's not really that far back. That's definitely able to be made up in one race alone.
I mean, anything can happen. There's still a few other tracks to come. I mean, all you gotta have is a little bit of luck and someone have a little bit of an issue in ahead of you, and it can happen, Seth. We've been a part of leagues that we've ran in, that we've watched, that we've commentated on. We have seen that happen. So we know anything can and will happen in these leagues.
We're more than halfway home here tonight at Pikes Peak. We've only worked 2 early cautions, and really both of those cautions were solo car spins. So things have been relatively clean here tonight, and we're closing in on what is going to possibly, for most of these drivers, be their final pit stop of the day. Projected that's going to be somewhere around the lap 110 to lap 115 mark, should we not see a caution flag before then. Jeff Supka leading the way. You talked about Chuck McClure, a couple of other drivers that have had some difficulty with pit road under that cycle of pit stops. Doug Cady was running inside the top 15 for a good portion of this race. He's now mired 2 laps down back in 24th. And we talked about Grant Wesley choosing the strategy of staying out under the first 2 yellows. He lost so much time that even after coming to pit road, he is 2 laps down in the 25th position. So obviously that strategy did not work out for the 88 car.
It's going to be very difficult to make that up, especially with how many laps are left and how this race has been cycling around so far with these long green flag runs and traffic all over the place, having to back off, having to figure out what move you're going to make. I mean, I'm looking at the front, though, Seth. Jeff Supka has a 3.5-second lead roughly over Jim Glover, okay? Robert Balcom is about 4 seconds back from that. And Brian Wolf has retired, apparently, from this race. I just wanted to point that out as it popped up on my ticker. I'm trying to figure out what in the world did Jeff Supka... now, okay, Robert Balcom, 3.9, Jim Glover, 3.5, but what in the world does Supka do to gain such a huge commanding lead during pit stops? Like, he must have had a really, really good perfect stop.
I think he did. I think another thing that benefited him as well, and it usually happens at tracks like this where it is so hard on the tires, the earlier you come to pit road, the better advantage you have of going out there laying down really flaming lap times as opposed to your competition that's out there on their older tires. And yes, Robert Balcom and Jim Gloud, they came to pit road a little bit later and they're able to counter that just the least little bit, but it really does make a huge difference. Another thing that I've noticed that Jeff Supka has been able to do as well, and this was, I noticed especially on the second restart that we had, he is able to carry so much speed through 1 and 2 on fresh tires. And I think that's where a lot of his gap right now has translated to, because he was able to, I don't think it was wide open, but it literally looked almost like he was wide open, like he never lifted off the throttle there on the fresh tires. So I think that 1 and 2 is his bread and butter when he's on those fresher Goodyears.
You hear that, Mr. Robert Balcom? We know that he likes to listen while we sit here and commentate, so gives him something to think about when he gets up there now, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, we're looking right now at the fact that with that round of green flag pit stops, we've only got 14 cars currently on the lead lap. there's about 10 drivers that are currently a lap down or more. Bob LaChance and Terry Ballman, should we get a caution, would be in line for those free pass positions.
Yeah, and Terry Ballman just got passed by Grant Wesley, who's a couple laps down. Grant Wesley trying to tag one with Jeremy Jeffries and Dante Ricky, who are slowly working their way up to that 72 machine of Jim Cloud. But, I mean, getting back to how this trend has been, Seth, it's been a really calm, really, it's been a really good race so far. I mean, there's battling all over. There's a couple places where it's single file and a big gap, but you look around, you will find a battle somewhere. I mean,
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter. And they've kept it clean and green this long. I mean, it's a really, really good race so far, in my opinion.
It definitely is. And that's the one thing about these type of races as well, where we know it comes down to how well you preserve your tire. We like to see them go into the long green flag runs because it gives us an idea of who has the best ability of being able to preserve those good years to be able to make it the furthest and be able to keep the consistent lap times. We just saw a pass for a couple of positions. Dante Ricky and Jeremy Jeffries getting around the 72 of Jim Glaude. So move Dante up to third, Jeremy up to fourth, and drop Jim back to the fifth position. I was actually looking as well at a couple of drivers that we haven't really talked about here today, and they've popped up here into the top 10. How about the 53 of Mike Bush? I mean, I think the last time we talked about him, he was almost making contact with another driver, but man,
He
that
actually
black
hit
and
the wall. Oh, 72 sideways. Cautioned
and
out.
he's collected up Terry Ballman. Third caution of the day. About 10 laps past the halfway point, and Jim Glaude, who is having such a good run today.
He was having such a good run. He was falling back a little bit on the high side. He got in that corner stuff, and I don't know whether he got help from behind or whether he just overcorrected. I didn't see it because I was a couple cars back going through the field, but I mean, good day, all of a sudden goes bad. I mean, you get those, and it's really unfortunate for that 72. It doesn't look like he's got a lot of damage though, so it looks like he'll be able to continue.
Like he's got some help. The other driver involved, Terry Ballman in the 69, I think is going to give him a little bit of contact. I think Jim Glaude was actually stuck behind the 35 of Frank Ribard, and was a bit of a stack up going into turn 3. And that's a tough break for Terry Ballman as well, because we've talked about the fact he's trying to reel in Benoit Plourde for the Challenger Series points lead. Not only that, trying to make his way into the next round of the Charger Series, and that's some pretty good right side damage on the 69. Jim Glaude has brought his 72 down pit road.
Yeah, and I did want to point out you were talking through the field about drivers who were really doing good and well and everything. I mean, I was going to comment on Andre Terra sitting there in the 75 machine, running in the top 10. I mean, he has had a really good day. I mean, we haven't talked about him hardly at all. We've come across him a couple of times, but we really haven't focused on him, and he's sitting there in the top 10 as well.
Like Robert Balcom's going to win the race off of pit road here, and I'm looking very intently at the lap that they just came down pit road on. Lap 90. So that's 50 laps to go for these drivers, and we know that that's about as far as they can make it on fuel. Tires are screaming by the time they get to lap 40. Is this their final pit stop of the day? If we go green to the end, are these drivers going to stretch it that final 50 laps, or do we see these drivers not be able to make it that far? Because I'm trying to remember when we ended up having drivers like Frank Rivard come down pit road and Chris Elliott, Bob Dixon, drivers that had stayed out longer. I think they were able to stretch it about somewhere in the range of 46 to 47 laps on that run. So is there 3 laps available for these guys?
If you want to really look at someone who stayed out, remember Grant Wesley. Wesley stayed out. He got himself mired in a big hole for doing that, but he also had a couple of cautions as well where people were able to rack up behind him. Now, if I was in that same position, I wouldn't know, Seth. I mean, if you can make it on fuel, that's one thing, but is it really worth the tire wear? Because if these drivers come in midway, I mean, if they come in like on lap 120, for example, if they come in on 120, they're going to have fresh tires. They'll be able to run you down, and by the time they get to you, they'll have a little bit better tire. They'll still be able to pass you. I mean, I wouldn't chance it. I'd come down and get fresh rubbers if I had a set left, wouldn't you?
I think I might, depending on the circumstances. If I'm running up inside the top 5 and I've got the race leader still within 5 seconds between me and him, then yeah, I think I would pull that strategy. I think if you're someone that's running towards the tail end of the lead lap and you're running 15 to 20 seconds back, you've got no choice. You got to stay out. You got to try and stretch the thing to the end, because otherwise you come down pit road, you're going to get trapped at least a lap and a half down. There's no way, depending on how many laps there are, there's no way, even with fresh tires, you're going to make that back up.
There are some drivers, as we can see, clutching a little bit too, Seth. So that's pretty much showing a little bit of the hand there as well. That some of these drivers might be thinking what you have brought up to the attention here.
It's going to be close. It's definitely going to be close, because I can remember back in that race we did at RTG Motor Speedway a couple of weeks ago, I thought I had the number correct as far as how far they could go on fuel, and a number of drivers told me no, we were about 4 or 5 laps off of that, short of making it. So, some of these drivers might not be able to make it to the checkered flag. Maybe all of them might not be able to. Maybe my numbers are off, but just based on what I saw there on that long green flag run we had, the furthest that a driver was able to stretch it, I think these drivers might be able to, with a little bit of clutching, make it to the conclusion of this race. As Robert Balcom brings them down, we're about to go back green flag racing with less than 50 laps to go at Pikes Peak.
75 Terrace is on pit road coming to the green. I don't know if this is a strategy call or if there was a problem with the machine, but he's on pit road. I'm following him to see what he's going to do, Seth. So I want to. And yellow is back out.
Caution is out again.
Andre did a drive-through. I don't know what there's a big wreck on that backstretch.
Oh, yes, there is. Oh, there's black smoke. Someone's day is done. Trying to figure out who that is.
Jim Cloud's day is done. He's got the smoke coming out, Seth.
Doug Katie's was collected up. I think there were a lot of drivers back here that might have gotten involved.
That just saved the 75 machine who's been running the top 10 having that caution come out. I mean, he had to do a drive-through, and he dodged a big bullet with that one.
Obviously, we're going to have to go back. I did notice that there was a bit of a staggered start there as well. I think it was the 62 of Ronald Lucet was not really up to the back bumper of the 4th place starting car. And I don't know if maybe they stacked up, and that might have been what led to maybe a clog and a log jam coming out of turn 2 at the middle of the pack. We'll have to look and see.
I'm looking at Doug Katie. He's got damage on the back of his machine. 42's coming into pit road. I'm not sure if the schedule sub RP was collected. 75 is coming back in as well.
Not even really sure who this starts with. Oh, it was contact between Chuck McClure in the 17 and the 53 of Mike Bush, as the two of them going into turn 1. Just kind of looks like the 17 gets up there, runs the 53 up the track just the least little bit. They make very minimal contact, but it's enough to send the 53 around.
You think it's that effect of restart cold tires after pitting?
Certainly could be. I mean, we know there's no grip up in that 3rd line, and the 53 on the cold tires was forced up into that lane that we know there is no grip available to a driver, so I wouldn't doubt it.
I don't know who the free pass is right off the back, but look at Grant Wesley right there in 19th of Benoit Floor. There's a chance right there something's going to happen. Jim Cloud officially has retired. It's showing oil pressure on his end, but we know that being collected in that wreck pretty much ended his day already. I mean, Jim Cloud, let's talk about him for a moment. He was doing so good, and remember what we said? The bad luck bug keeps biting that driver.
I know. It's uncanny, too, because it happens in so many different ways. Jim Cloud, no, undoubtedly, had a top 5 car here tonight, was running up as high as 2nd place. And in this situation here, just wrong place, wrong time. He's running on the top side, trying to get around Jack DeSalt and Bob Dixon. And the cars migrate up to the line that he's in. Doug Katie, nowhere to go. You mentioned about the fact there of Benoit Plourde and Grant Wesley being in the free pass positions. I think Benoit Plourde is going to be one of the drivers that gets the free pass. I'm not certain about the 88, though, because he did get a little piece of the incident. So we'll have to see who the second driver is.
According to the chat information from the admin of Dante Ricky here, 87, 88, lucky dog. Grant Wesley has been given the lucky dog.
All right, so that little bit of contact he had with the front of his race car apparently did not qualify, or disqualify him, I should say, from getting the free pass. And Grant Wesley, just to bring everybody up to date as well, was one of the drivers that actually took the wave around under the last caution. So he is back on the lead lap with getting the lucky dog here. So we'll see if the 88 can combat what early on was not the best of pit strategies.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that they were able to get into a long green flag run, and now we had that caution that set them up, and now this secondary caution a couple laps later. I mean, Seth, what do you think now regarding would you want to come in and just pick tires as a precaution and expect that the rest of it's going to go into a fuel run, or how would you approach it if it was you in this situation?
I mean, these drivers only got, what, about maybe 2 corners of green flag laps on their tires there. That caution came out awfully early there just after the restart. I don't think tires are going to be an issue for the moment for these drivers. I don't think especially these guys up here in the front want to give up that track position. What I do wonder about is how does this help them in terms of fuel? Because we don't really know if they were short, how short they were. They're getting about 2-3 pace laps here under caution, which could save them anywhere from about a lap to a lap and a half of fuel. Depending on how short they were, this might be the caution that saves just about everybody in the field from having to come down pit road in the closing stages.
Absolutely. We're about to go back to green on lap 98 here, Seth. Start at the beginning on 98, the end of 97 as Grant and Benoit Ford come back around to join the rest of the field on the lead lap now.
Andre Charest, you mentioned getting saved by that caution. Benoit Plurt and Grant Wesley getting the lucky dogs. 18 drivers will be on the lead lap as we get ready to go back green. Jeff Supka has led 50 laps so far, and he's going to complete lap 97, putting us on to 98, closing in on 40 laps to go.
One question is, how aggressive are they going to be now? I mean, we just had 2 cautions back to back. Is that an indication of, hey, calm down, relax, we're not done yet, or is it's go time? We have to get our positions now.
That's the big thing. That's the big question, because we've had a long green flag run. We also had 2 early cautions at the beginning of this race. So, yeah, is this possibly a battle now for the race win, or is there another caution, another restart in the future of these drivers? I think that's what they kind of have to weigh in the balance. And how about Andre Mahjong? We saw the pole sitter get hit with an EOL penalty, getting a black flag under the first yellow. Had to fall all the way back to around the 23rd position. He's now been able to make forward progress and trying to battle for 6th with Sean Kerrigan.
Yeah, but he's got a big mountain to climb with Jeff Supta, Balcom, Jeffries, Dante Ricky, Dave Mellison. I mean, these guys are up there too.
We got a yellow flag again.
It looks like it's a 53 machine.
Mike Bush. Possible solo car incident. Looks like that might have been over in turn 4 again.
And this right here would save Terry Ballman as one of the next drivers to get the lap back, because we saw Terry, he was falling back, and he needs those points to battle with that cutoff line that he's currently in the middle of at this moment.
Bauman and Chris Elliott, I think according to our telemetry, would be the 2 drivers that would get the lucky dog here. See what happens to Mike Bush. He had the rear end damage, so I'm assuming he backed it up into the outside wall, and looks like there's going to be some contact between himself and the 51 of Bob LaChance, and I'm just kind of curious to see. No, that just actually looked like the car getting loose. I wondered if that possible LP conspiracy that I was talking about earlier might have played a part in that, but no, that just was the case, the car stepping out, and Jack DeSalt in the 36 also went around and got into the outside wall.
Bauman has retired, Seth.
And I'm trying to find the 36 of DeSalt. Did he retire too?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, because I just saw he spun out, and then I couldn't find him on here.
Quickly, see if the 69 was involved, because he's retired as well. And he was going to be the lucky dog that time. I don't know what happened.
Wondering if maybe the 36, when he went around, maybe got a little help from Terry. Because remember, Terry Ballman ended up getting into a driver earlier. And I don't know if with the penalty system, if maybe this would go down as a second incident for the 69, if indeed he ends up spinning the 36 car here, which could end up being related to a park.
Or at least trying to be careful so he doesn't get docked on the incident report afterward.
Going into turn 4, you're going to see the car there of Mike Bush go around, and yeah, it looks like the 36 got a little bit of help there, but that looked more like a checkup than anything else.
Everyone's scattering for position right away on these restarts, so I was wanting to get that track position quickly because we only got about 40 laps to go.
And take one more look here at the 36 and 69 incident. The gap closed up quite a bit there too. I was trying to figure out if maybe some net code came into play. No, 69 just didn't slow as much as the 36. And I have a feeling that Terry Bauman probably parked it, with that being the second time that he's gotten into a driver here. Although that wasn't what brought out the initial caution. So I don't necessarily know if follow-up wrecks lead to the penalty system as well. But that is a tough break there for Terry Bauman, because you're absolutely right. He was in line to get the lucky dog with that caution coming out, and he's trying to gain points here to move his way not only into that round of 6 for the Charger series, but also trying to close up the points gap in the Challenger series, that 11 points between himself and Benoit Plourde.
Quickly, can we give a quick shout out to a driver real quick, Seth?
Absolutely.
I want to look at the 54 Robbie Nice is driving the that special scheme for his daughter, his 23rd birthday today. Look at where he is. He's been running in the back, went a few laps down. Mine is on this. Look at him now on the lead lap. Look at the stuff he's overcome so far this whole race, being so far back, and now look at him, lead lap, just mining his time, just biding it slowly, and it's paying off.
Yeah, and we've seen already here, these restarts have been crazy. So, right place, right time. No doubt he could work his way up into the top 10. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think when we were under that long green flag run, he was one of the first cars put a lap down. So I think he ended up getting the wave around at one point. And so he is now on the lead lap. And as you said, running very solidly inside of the top 16 right now, in the 16th position, trying to move his way further up in the running order.
And we talked about running special schemes and all earlier, and that scheme seems to be really paying really good dividends for him.
Well, there's a difference in mentality when you're driving a tribute scheme. It motivates you even more to go out there and do well. As we're getting ready to go back green, we're now under 40 laps to go. Jeff Supko with a rear decklet full of Jeremy Jeffries. Dante Ricky now going to jump down to the inside line there as well. Robert Balcom trapped up in that second group, but as long as he can keep those left side tires on that dark gray, I think he might be able to clear for second, and he does.
Yeah, this is going to be crunch time now, Seth. They're all fighting for positions. I mean, if you look at the drivers inside that top 8 right there, you've got, especially you got Sean Kerrigan trying to battle for that standing for that series that's going on as well. You have Supta, Balcom, Jeffries, Dante, Ricky, Melson, Ronald. I mean, these drivers here, and the yellow flag is back out, Seth.
Caution's out again, and I think it might be over in turn 4. Yeah, it was.
The 53
Mike Bush in the
machine.
53. You saw the race leaders. They saw the smoke over there, all trying to figure out which way do I scatter if that car is still there.
I was just going to mention that they were all right there, and those drivers are up in the points. I mean, they're trying to make sure they don't have any issues whatsoever to gain or lose any points to someone else. I mean, they were all right there within a group.
I think we got to bring up here as well, Jess, and we bring this up just about every race. Sometimes we finish under greens. Sometimes, however, we finish under caution. And for some of these drivers, especially these guys up at the front, target lap that they might be looking for might be somewhere around the lap 137, maybe 136 mark, because they get about 2 or 3 laps of pacing under these cautions.
Well, if we go back to if we go back to green with one, like for example, if it's 137, for example, right? If it's caution, we're gonna have a 1-lap shootout or a 2-lap shootout. I'd be very comfortable if I was the leader at that point, because we've seen this lead just like pull away constantly every single green flag we've had on these restarts. The only time it didn't really work was when Grant Wesley stayed out on those old tires. But I mean, if I'm the leader and I've got a couple laps, like for a couple lap shootout, I'm in a really good position. I'm happy either way, whether it ends under caution or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen how Jeff Supka, I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, he's been one of the best getting through turns 1 and 2 in terms of getting the speed out of that race car. We took a look at what happened there to Mike Bush, that solo car incident. What we didn't show you is over, I think it was in turn 3, just the lap before. He was up on the top side, made a little bit of contact with Benoit Plourde. That sent him up into the wall, and we saw that rear end damage. We know that these cars have very low spoilers to begin with, and when that back end gets all messed up and no spoiler to be able to catch the air, it makes that car even looser going into the turn, which I think is what led to that 53 looping it around, and Mike Bush has actually taken his car back behind the wall as a result.
And Bob Dixon will be back on the lead lap after this, and Chuck McClure will be labeled 1 lap down. So Chuck trying to work his way back up to gain a lap that he has lost in this race so far. I mean, he's in a dire situation where he needs to gain some points.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance for him to get back on the lead lap. We get another caution, he would be the first car 1 lap down and get back on the lead lap. But to your point, you know, how much ground can he gain with the limited number of laps we would obviously have left? Even if we have another caution come out on the same lap as we go green, we're going to be somewhere, around the vicinity of 25 laps to go. And as we saw in the case of Andre Majang, when he had that penalty trying to work his way back up to the front, I mean, he's just now been able to make his way up into the top 10, and we're 100 laps into this race. So, it took him about 70 to 80 laps to get himself at least back up into the top 5 vicinity.
I'm just trying to figure out, Seth, if you're Robert Balcom or Jeremy Jeffries, or I know, and we all know Dante, he's going to just relax and ride it out like he always does. But you've got Dave Melson there, and you got Ron Luzier up back there as well. If you're Ron, Dave, Jeremy, or Robert, or even Jeff, how aggressive are you going to restart this? Are you wanting to pull away to a big lead immediately, or are you wanting to attack it real quickly as Chuck McClure goes around and get a lap back along with Bob Dixon? I mean, what in the world are your strategies going to be at this point? You got tires here that you're going to burn up. Do you attack it or no?
I think you have to. I think you have to attack it because we don't know how many more cautions are going to come out. If we end up having cautions intermingle between these final 30 laps, you're going to get maybe 1 or 2 laps to be able to challenge for a position from 4th to 3rd, from 2nd to the race lead, or even towards the back from 10th up to 9th, regardless of where you are in the running order. You've got to make the most of those limited number of laps available to you if indeed we end up seeing more cautions peppered between now and the checkered flag. Now, if we go into a long green flag run, I think you still have to be on the attack mode because we saw how Jeff Supka was able to open up a huge gap over Robert Balcom earlier, but Balcom was able to close it back up. So I think with whichever scenario it is, if it's green to the end or if we have cautions, you have to be in full on attack mode now because whatever move you make could be the move that gets you this win.
We're back to green, starting on lap 110. We've got about, what is it, Seth? We got about 31 to go?
Yeah, 31 to go.
Oh, wow, a little bit of contact with Doug Cady and Bob Dixon back here. Cady was really sideways, but seems like they save and they're okay.
Ron Lucet was way up the track there inside the top 10, also almost 3 wide. Oh, they're pinching back here with Grant Wesley and Frank Rivard. That makes me nervous because we know if you pinch down there and that car comes up into you, we haven't seen many drivers be able to really save it here today with door-to-door contact.
And we know Grant. Grant spent most of this race off the lead group. He wants to redeem himself for that mistake he made earlier, I'm sure.
Richard Martin going to dive low on Stefan Martel. Bob LaChance back there trying to battle with Grant Wesley, who is making some forward progress in that second line. Talking about the 88. He's now almost inside of the top 10.
Chuck McClure back here way in the back with this pack. He's still a lap down. You know he's wanting a caution. You know he's wanting a chance to get that opportunity to get back up there in that top group. I mean, you got him 2 points back behind Dante. He wants something bad, really bad to happen so he can gain those positions again, Seth.
As things stand right now, Dante has not led a lap today. Robert Balcom has led 14. I think Robert Balcom and Dante Ricky, with where they're currently positioned, it would be 1 point separation between those two, with Dante Ricky having the advantage heading into next week. Obviously, a lock and change between now and the checkered flag as now Grant Wesley swaps down to the inside line, looking for a spot on Richard Martin. That is for the 10th position.
And we know Robert ain't going to go away quietly. We know you're saying 1 point away. I mean, I have a feeling Robert ain't going to play nice. Robert's going to go up there and try to get this win from him. And, the laps will wind down, and he's going to be there, Seth. He's not going to just say, okay, you can have it, no problem. He's going to go after it.
All of a sudden, Dave Melson, we're finding him with a little bit more speed than what he had before. Kind of rode from 5th to 7th most of this race. Now the highest he's been in that 3rd spot, and he's actually reeling in the 18 of Balcom.
Can we call someone under the radar and look where he's at again?
Absolutely. I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed in this race too that I've been really surprised about. A lot of drivers talk about at these type of tracks that aero push, the dirty air. I've actually seen these drivers get some really good runs with the draft through the corners. So it hasn't really looked like that aero push has come into play today, which really has shocked me.
Seems like it's single file pretty much all the way back to where Doug Cady is. No one's really making, some drivers are a little bit higher up than others. I do want to point out someone that we haven't really touched on at all, Seth, doing really good this race. Look at the 57 machine.
Stefan Martel in that tied machine running behind fellow French Canadians Ronald Lucet and Andre Mahjong right now in the 9th position, and he's the next one on Grant Wesley's hit list down here into 3.
I mean, he's done pretty well, stay out of trouble and managing to hold himself in the top 10 real nicely. We haven't talked about him at all, but he's up there.
Stefan Martel coming into this race 25th in points. It hasn't been a great year for him. But right now trying to go for a top 10 run. Grant Wesley trying to figure out where he can put his car, trying to make the pass. He went up to the outside line there. He was trying the inside line out of 4. Grant's driving frustrated right now, I think, because he knows he's got a car that can win this race. Yikes.
That scared me with Andre coming down like that. That really worried me, because Grant's really attacking this aggressively. As we see Jeremy Jeffries going by Dave Melson on the inside up in turn 2.
Oh man, that car got loose on him. He almost got up into Melson. What a save.
Yeah, you remember how we said it earlier? Is it go time? What do you think, Seth?
Well, I think it's go time. We're closing in on 20 laps to go for these drivers, and you could throw a blanket over our top 10. They're all separated by about a second and a half. That is close for a track like Pikes Peak.
Oh my, Seth, I don't know. This is going to be a nail biter all the way to the end. This is almost like watching the elections. Who's going to win?
Wesley's been the fun one to watch here, just inside the top 10 now. He's tried high, he's tried low. He just went to the top of Andre Mahjong. Now he'll try the bottom down here in 3 and 4. Gets close to that left rear quarter panel, but Mahjong does leave the door open for Wesley to stick his foot in. Couldn't get to his left rear.
And how many times have we seen Andre Mahjong on these restarts be so aggressive to really pull away and actually keep the lead? And in this case, you know, he's on these restarts, he's trying to stay with the pack, pulling away on those tires. I mean, he's really trying to keep it in there.
Dave Melson has now caught back up to the bumper of Robert
Grant
Balcom.
has got underneath Andre, Seth. So he's setting his sights on the Ron machine now with the 62. And yellow is out.
Caution is out. You are correct here.
Chuck
Closing in
McClure.
on 20 to go. Richard Martin, the 43, was in it as well.
The 9 of Chris Elliott, but I'm looking at Chuck McClure in the 17. He wanted it, he needed it, and he got it.
He did indeed. He, along with Doug Cady, I think, are going to be the recipients of the free pass. McClure will be back on the lead lap. Cady will be at -1. It's like Richard Martin and Chris Elliott getting together, and Richard Martin, the last I checked, was running in the 11th position. Andre Charest is down in the apron there too. I think he's got some right side damage, so I think the 75 car might have gotten a piece of this.
I'm not sure what happened to Frank Rivera. He was really low around pit entry a moment ago, coming around to run the, try to catch the field and everything. And I'm not sure whether it pulled him down over pit road or it pulled him back up on the track. I'm not sure.
He was around the 43 of Richard Martin. So, oh yeah, he was actually the one that made the contact with the 43 was Rivard. Is coming out of turn 4, actually heading into turn 3, actually. There's the contact, Rivard in the back of Martin. Martin trying to save it. And then right there, that bit of contact with the 9 of Chris Elliott sends him around. And I thought Andre Charest was caught up in this wreck. Actually, that right side damage was from getting into the wall earlier. And Richard Martin is now out of this race in the 43. And that was at the time a battle for the 11th position between the 43 and the 35.
And you want to hear something interesting, Seth? Dave Melson stays out, picks up a bonus point at this point, which is pretty much needed. I don't know if this is a good strategy. The rest of these drivers came in for tires, so I'm wondering about Dave Melson's decision to stay out here. I mean, if he stays out on this restart, can we see another Grant Wesley repeat here?
Man, this is interesting because he's I'm trying to remember. I think the last time these drivers were down on pit road was back around, what was the lap 75 mark. So
Yeah.
he's going to have about 30 lap to 35
Well,
lap older
so,
tires.
so some of these drivers came down lap 90 when we had that we had those cautions back to back from 90 96, remember?
Good point.
So some of these drivers might have come down lap 90 and we don't remember which ones came in. So there's that possibility as well.
Yep, you're correct. It was the 50 lap to go mark when these drivers pit. So with that in mind, he's got about 34 lap old tires as opposed to everybody else. You know, I go back again to the Grant Wesley situation. On that restart that we saw him fall to the back, he was about 35 lap older tires than everybody else, and he just was not able to keep the pace with those drivers that had just been to pit road. So I'm not certain about this strategy for Dave Melson either. We know he had the pace to keep himself up there in the top 5 when he was on a level footing tire-wise with everybody else. But I'm not certain if he's going to be able to hold off Supka and Jeffries and those other guys.
I have no idea what his plan is here. I mean, he's currently running 4th in points, 17 points back. He stands to lose a few positions based on where Supta's running, because Supta's running 5th in the standings right there, 33 points back behind the leader. So about close to about 15 or so, a little bit less than 15 points behind where Nelson's running. I mean, I would not have done that. That's just my opinion. I mean, these drivers obviously know what they're doing and their mindset, but I mean, I wouldn't have done that.
Only thing I can think of that Dave Melson might be planning on here is seeing a couple more cautions between now and lap 136. If he can hold the lead from those other guys for a couple of restarts, he might be able to win this thing under caution. That's the only way I could possibly see him winning this race. If this thing goes green to the end or goes green up to that point of no return where the race would end under yellow, I just don't see it happen. Now, he did have some other drivers we should mention that stayed out with him. Bob Dixon, Benoit Plord, and Chris Elliott. So he's got a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a cushion between himself before you get back there to Supka and Balcom. The question is, though, how quickly do those two disperse of that wall?
Well, we're about to find out because there's a lot of drivers that are coming for that top position with fresh tires. There's 19 drivers on the lead lap, one lap driver that's down, which is one lap down, which is Doug Cady in the 20th position. I mean, Seth, less than 20 to go. They're coming around for another green flag. I mean, it's going to get really hectic with everyone scrambling for position, especially with those fresh tires.
This could be the strategy call of the season. We'll have to wait and see as Dave Melson gets us back underway with 14 laps to go.
Balcom was all over the 9's back bumper on that restart. Oh, Chris Elliott right underneath Bob Dixon. There goes Balcom, 4 wide.
Yikes! And now to 3 wide.
Oh, God, they're
2
going to
rows
pinch him.
deep. Oh, Benoit Plord was crowding Robert Balcom out. Here comes Supka to the inside. We're still 3 wide coming off of
3
4.
wide, several rows deep back here, too, Seth. The 57 just went around Sean Kerrigan. And there's in the wall. The 62 is around and collecting other drivers.
I saw Martell. I saw Elliott.
Chuck McClure's involved.
Bob LaChance is in it.
They're still wrecking back there.
Orlando LeBoy is involved back there in the 42.
Meanwhile, up front, Dave Melson still holding on. Here comes Supka trying something right here. Can Supka get the lead off the corner?
Gets to the inside.
Melson has it.
Ooh, Melson held him off. But there's going to be at least another restart. Melson was able to survive there. It was less than 10 to go, I do believe, which is why we raced back. But
Yep.
I don't think on this next restart. I don't think he's got a shot here on this next restart.
No, Benoit Plord, Bob Dixon, Chris Elliott, they have lost so much ground on that restart based on how aggressive we saw Robert Balcom be. I mean, but what about that restart, Seth?
I can't believe we called 4 wide at Pikes Peak, and they kept it together. That was amazing. And we're going to see where the contact was here. I think it did start with the 62 of Ronald Lucet. We saw the contact initiate just off of our screen. I think it might have been himself and Grant Wesley that got together. And unfortunately, after the 62 gets up into the wall, it just completely blocks up the track. Martel nowhere to go.
Chuck McClure involved. I mean, he had just gotten back up on the lead lap, and then he unfortunately gets involved in this incident too.
Robbie Nice has got a little bit of damage getting to the back of Bob LaChance, who was into the 62. We're going to take a look here at the 17 of Chuck McClure. It looks like when the 57 of Martel made his contact with Lucet, it just sent him down the track into the lane that Chuck McClure had chosen.
And after that incident, they were still wrecking. I saw someone come in flying toward the end of that wreck and really destroy the machine.
42 of LeBoy there, and we're going to see who that driver was. Looks like it might have actually been Martel sliding in again there in the 57 car. He had already been out of shape and spun out. Well, no doubt that restart shuffled things up in terms of where everybody was running, in terms of those drivers that stayed out, but it also shuffled out where everybody was running in terms of those with the fresh tires, because now this moves Jeff Supka up in front of Robert Baucom, but Baucom is going to be lining up behind the race leader, and the race leader is going to be able to, if he gets a bit of an advantage, it could end up being the opportunity for Baucom to strike.
I was thinking about drivers like Chuck McClure for a moment. Okay, we know he got the lucky dog. We know he got involved in that incident. Guess what? What do you do when you don't have any tires to come in to get without being penalized that extra lap down? Now you're going to be off the pace. Question is, how bad is these restarts going to be with those drivers who were involved with worn tires? You got people up here like Dave Nelson who stayed out. How hard is he going to drive this? What about these other drivers? You got Zupta, Balcom, Jeffries. They're right there. They've been the class of the field most of this race. I have no idea what we're about to witness here, Seth. It's going to be really aggressive right away, right off the green flag. We saw them go all over the place a moment ago trying to get position. Now it's going to matter because we're under 10 to go.
The thing for Dave Melson that he's going to have to do here, he's going to have to hold it down the inside line. That's the only defensive thing he can do. But Jeff Supka, we saw, even in the early stages of this race, I think it was back on lap 10, he made a pass around Jim Gloud at the time for the third position using the second groove. So he knows how to utilize that outside line to his advantage to make a pass. So I think for Dave Melson, his bed's been made. He's got a lie in it. He cannot give up all this track position now. He's just got to see how many positions he can hold on to before we get to the checkered flag. And based on the fact we're going to be going back green with 9 laps to go, it's possible we may get another restart if we get an early caution here prior to this race ending under yellow. But I think if we get, as I said, to around lap 136, 137, that transition, this race will undoubtedly end under the caution flag if we see one before the white comes out.
And how bad these drivers want to get in that position right now, if that case does happen, we'll go back to green flag, beginning lap 132 on the board.
They really stacked up from the 6th position on back. Benoit Plort did not get going and fell back into the grill of the driver behind him as Melson pushes up in the corner, still trying to hold that
wide
inside
back
line.
here, Sean Kerrigan.
That's
Just
an
back out side by side.
87's got those worn tires, so he is dropping like a rock. Ooh, Kerrigan almost got into the back of Wesley, who almost got into the back of Mahjong. These drivers attacking the corners a lot more aggressively on entry than they did before.
Falcon making a move under Melson, trying to get the position right away as Jeffries and Supta start to pull away from the pack.
Jeff Supka, as we mentioned, looking for some redemption from last week, getting hit with a late EOL penalty after being out in front for a good portion of that Pocono race. He's got Jeremy Jeffries behind him about 2.5 car lengths, closing in on 7 laps to go.
And Dante Ricky, he's dogging the back end of that machine as well. I mean, Dante looking to try to increase his lead over who I imagine will probably be Robert Balcom after this race is concluded.
Yeah, Balcom right now running 1 position ahead of Dante. That's all Dante's got to do is keep the 18 within striking distance as Mahjong moves by Dave Melson. Wesley will do the same. That's going to drop the 13 now back to the 8th position.
Battling all over this place right now, Seth. We got a few laps left. You talked about it. It's 135 right now. 6 laps to go. If there is a caution in the next few moments, I mean, I don't know. They better start getting themselves ready to go in case that caution does come out.
Oh, gracious, like we're about to have a caution here. Stefan Martel with a great save as he pushed up into Chuck McClure. Almost went around, but he was able to keep it straight. We remain green for the time being.
Yeah, McClure trying his best to come back and gain what points he can that he's lost through this whole race from earlier on in that incident that we just had. Lap 136 is on the board, Seth. Do you make your move now, or are you comfortable riding second or third?
You've got to make your move. We just saw right there, we nearly had a caution take place in the midway portion of the pack. If you're within striking distance of Jeff Supka, no matter when you get to the back bumper, you've got to make the move then. I don't think you can wait.
Well, I'm saying up at the front, would you rather just stay in line and just sit there and say, okay, I'm second or I'm third in line, I'm just going to sit here and ride and gain at least some points, therefore I'm safe, or do you want to try to risk that and push it even further?
Well, yeah, I think that would be the safest bet to be able to go with that strategy. But these guys are racers. As soon as they put the helmet on, they got one goal. That's to be the first across the start-finish line when the checkered flag is waving.
And we've seen Supka. He's been able to hold up 3 wide back here. Chris Elliott, Doug Cady, Stefan Martel.
Oh, boy.
Chuck McClure holding up the whole line, trying to gain whatever points he can. He's up
Oh.
top, 3 wide.
If we're going to see a caution, it's going to be in this portion of the field. Bob Dixon with a big run as Martel gets into the back of Cady. And I noticed that the gap closed up between Jeff Supka and Jeremy Jeffries with 2.5 laps to go.
They're coming around. They're about to get 2 to go, Seth. I mean, I don't know how much more they're going to throw. Stefan Martel in the back of the 17.
We're going to keep an eye up here at the front, just keeping track of what's going on back there, just in case the caution comes out. The next flag's going to end this race. The question is it going to be the caution or is it going to be the white? They got half a lap to make it around to this white flag.
So far, Stefan Martel hit the wall. Chuck McClure is able to pass him. It looks like they're going to sell that right back here for right now. I don't actually, wait, I don't know. Stefan Martel is battling really hard with the 17 back here, Seth.
Well, the leader's taking the white flag, so whatever happens now in this lap will not matter in terms of the race win. As Supka out in front, Jeffries tried to ride it high, wide, and handsome out of 2 to get a run, but he's just not close enough. Jeff Supka is going to get some Pocono redemption from last week. He leads 83 laps here tonight. His 84th will be the checkered flag. He'll win at Pikes Peak.
Robbie Nice is in his tree scheme, getting around the 17 of Chuck McClure, drives it really wide into the wall. He's in trouble. He's up against the wall. 17 backs off, but he's still making it around just fine.
At the 42 of Orlando LeBoy going through the grass there, coming to the checkered flag, trying to make a pass on Chuck McClure. Everyone's scrapping for every position possible, coming to the conclusion of this race. But Jeff Supka is going to be the winner of this one here tonight after starting this race rather uncharacteristically, we thought, outside of the top 10. He started this race, I'm sorry, rather just inside the top 10 in the 9th position.
Yeah, we saw Robert Balcom, and you were probably thinking about Balcom being in the middle of this pack for the start. So that's probably where your mind went to. I mean, I'm looking at this finishing result here. The 35 of Frank Brevard, the 27 Andre Marjan, the 88 of Grant Wesley. Drivers who had issues early on, and look at where they finished. That's really great perseverance. The 75 of Andre Terrace comes away with 9th position. Dave Melson, unfortunately, tried to hold on, tried to use strategy on his side, didn't pay off. He ends up finishing in the 11th position tonight.
But to the point you just made, it's all about staying out there, logging the laps, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, I had Grant Wesley written off in this race at the first half because he was 2 laps down after that rather unorthodox pit road strategy, if you will. He ended up staying out into the first 2 cautions and found himself way off the pace, but a great comeback run for him. And took looking as well in terms of like those other series that we've been keeping an eye on here. Benoit Plourde, he was able to finish in 12th. The driver he was battling for the Challenger Championship, Terry Ballman, finishing out of the race, so that points lead will extend. You've also got the Charger Series. It looks like Orlando LeBoy was able to do exactly what he needed to. He, along with Andre Mahjong, Sean Kerrigan, Bob LaChance, Chuck McClure, and Dante Ricky, they'll be moving on to round 4. And in terms of the overall championship right now, that overall championship battle, Robert Balcom, Dante Ricky finishing close proximity to each other, so they will remain single digits apart from each other. The big question mark there is Chuck McClure. He's going to drop a bit in the standings with finishing back in the 17th spot.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, Dave Mellison stayed out. He led a lap and he finished, like I said, in 11th. But with Supta coming away with the win here, that's going to catapult him into this, and it's going to bring that little bit closer, a little bit more tighter with that points battle. Dante obviously going to have a commanding lead over the rest of the field. I mean, Robert Balcom's probably going to be right there on his heels though. But Chuck McClure, Dave Mellison, Supta, those three are going to be battling for that third position.
Yeah, Jeff Supta has been on the pole multiple races this season. I believe there's only been 3 races, including tonight, where he has not started on the inside of the front row. But this is only his second win of the season, his first about 4 weeks ago at Dover. And you alluded to it. 33 points back coming into this race, going to make that top 5 battle for the championship even closer when these drivers head into Phoenix next week. Let's see if we can get some of our top 3 finishers and their opinion of tonight's track. It looked like mostly a 2-groove racetrack, and really go any higher, you had some issues. Looked like pit road wasn't as much of a problem for these guys, but let's talk with Robert Balcom, who's going to finish in the 3rd position here tonight, a driver that had to make his way through some traffic early. Robert, you got us up here in the booth?
10-4.
Well, man, a great run for you here today. We saw you up inside of the top 3 all race long, but as I just alluded to before we brought you in here, you started what we thought was a little bit uncharacteristically outside of the top 10. Started from the 11th position, had to slowly work your way up to the front. How difficult was it to pass here? Because it looked like the inside line was the preferred line. It was possible to make a move there on that second group, but any higher, there was no grip.
Yeah, it's just all about saving tires. I'm not really a qualifier anyways, but I'd ran like 2 long runs in practice, so I guess I went out and qualified like my racing run. But it's not too bad. You can save your tires, and like I said, as long as you save your tires, keep them around 210, you got them for the long run. That was the main thing. You know, I was just trying to do my normal thing, race the track, and enjoy doing what I'm doing.
Hey,
You know,
Rob, go ahead, Seth. Sorry.
I was just going to quickly bring up here too. You guys are running the CTS physics here with the Aero 88 series, and a lot of times when we see you guys go to the longer tracks, the 1.5 miles, the mile-long tracks, we end up hearing you guys talk about the fact that you get such a run, you get that aero tightness when you get up behind somebody and you try and search for some clean air. It really didn't look like anyone was dealing with aero tightness, at least from a third-party standpoint. But was that a factor for you drivers here tonight in traffic?
No, I didn't really feel any of it. Like I said, the main thing is just saving your tires, not trying to run a. I know a bunch of guys like take off and run, and it seemed like they'd come back to you. But I think me and Jeremy pretty much just settled in. It was kind of in Dante. We were kind of just staying with what we had there. Zuta was real fast. He was having some internet problems there for a little while, so we kind of just backed off and let him go. And towards the end there, they cleared up for him. So I was glad to see that for him because he had a fast car.
Hey, Robert, I got a couple of questions to ask you. Toward the end of that run, there was a point where you were 3 wide, really close, and Seth, I think they went 4 wide, correct, at that
They
point?
did.
Like, how hard is it to hold your line that high up coming off of that corner like that without, like, panicking? I mean, you were almost, like, squeezed into a sandwich where I wouldn't even be comfortable at. I mean, how do you maintain yourself, keep your calm, keep your cool, and not panic in a situation like that?
Yeah, that was. I know. I just went back and watched it because we were all laughing about it. But yeah, I could have reached over and grabbed some of the Doritos out of the Chris Elliott's Dorito cart down the back straightaway. I just backed out. I mean, I had such a good start, and I knew it was going to be between probably me, Zuta, Jeffries, or Dante, whoever got out front, because they all had new tires. So I got such a good run off turn 2, and then I think we came up on the 143 so quick, and 9 had check up, and I had check up, and I turned down, and then the 87 was there, and like I said, down the back straightaway, I literally could feel both of them touching the side of my car. So I just backed off in 3 and 4 early, got the car turned down behind Jeff there, and just lived to fight another day.
Now, the other thing I was curious about is we saw Jeff pull out and get a commanding lead. And there was a couple times where I brought it up to Seth. I'm like, Seth, do you think he's using up like his tires early? Because we've seen that plenty of times before with him and like other cracks. Him pull away. I mean, were you ever? Did it ever occur to you that I mean, how do you feel about someone being able to pull away like that? I mean, does it ever come into your mind like, am I going to be able to catch him, or is he just using his tires? Or by the time that I catch him, are my tires going to be where his tires are? Like, how does that play in your mindset with your tire wear compared to what Jeff was doing?
Well, like I said, I don't really know that Jeff was running that much harder than us. Pretty much until I don't know, probably I guess after we probably made our third pit stop, Jeff was. I don't know if you could tell on y'all's end, but Jeff was blinking. He was having quite a bit of internet problems, and if he was out in front of us, it was all right. But as soon as we got probably within 3 or 4 car lengths of him, he started jumping up and down the track and side to side. So me and Jeremy both had just said, "Hey, I'm just gonna back off and ride." So it might have looked like he was running a lot harder than he really was because we were kind of just settling down. Not that he wasn't fast, but there's no reason to really get up there and hoping more or less we were just hoping that his internet would settle down so he could run because as well as I do trying to pass somebody when they're blinking side to side it usually doesn't work out too good.
Well, we have, according to the points right now. I mean, I'm not sure if they've been updated and official yet, Seth. But before this race started, you had dropped 2 positions down to third, 5 points back from Dante. Now we saw that where Dante finished right behind you. We know Dante's going to keep that point lead, but you're right there now. I mean, is it time for you to sit there and jump on this and get the championship lead and just pull away now, or are you just going to take it one race at a time?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how it's gonna work out. Like I said, I think I missed 2 weeks. I know I was leading, and I just took a couple weeks off just to do something different. And right now, my main worry is my wife's health. She goes in the hospital next week, so that's all I'm worried about right now. That's my main thing. Like I said, if that works out and we're able to get back on the track, so be it. But like I said, my main worry is with her, and because she's my rock for sure. So I'm just gonna. She's if anyone else wins it, great for them. I congratulate them. But like I said, having her back is the biggest trophy of all. So.
Well, Robert, obviously a great run for you here tonight. A third place performance, top 5 car all night long. Would have been really interesting to see what you would have been able to do if you and the 11 were 1-2, because you both looked like, in terms of lap times, especially, you guys were right on the mark, even with each other. But still, great momentum here. You continue to run well in the points, and we're gonna now turn the mic over to you, ladies, some shout outs.
Oh yeah, first thing I want to do is give a shout out to RTG. Like I said, I swear I should be on tape recorder saying this every week. Great league to run in, by far the best out there as far as competition. These guys are just, like I said, you come out here, you run top 10, you've accomplished something, that's for sure. I want to give a shout out to you guys at Flatout Racing Network. Awesome broadcast. Listen to them every week. You always help me out on my strategies. Jess is always in the background. She knows I'm listening. So I appreciate that. I want to give an early happy birthday to my dad. Tomorrow's his birthday. I don't know if he's watching or not, but happy birthday to him. And then, like I said, everybody out there, y'all just keep us in your prayers. My wife, she goes in the hospital next week, and that's our main worry right now. That cause we're not sure how that's gonna work out, but worry about her because she's definitely my rock, and of course my mini rock in there, my daughter Caitlin, my cheerleader in the background. She's really gotten into racing a lot here lately, so it's kind of cool having her tell me what I did wrong pretty much the rest of the night. So, but I appreciate everybody out there, and congratulations to Jeff. Great win, Jeff. Drove a great job, and to Jeremy too.
That's Robert Balcom, brings home third place here tonight at Pikes Peak. Congrats on a great run there, Robert, and good luck on the rest of the season.
Thank you.
See if we can get our second place finisher now, Jeremy Jeffries. Jeremy, it's Justin Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network Studios. You got us?
I do. Hey, how you guys doing? Oh, guys and gals.
We're doing good. I mean, a second place run for you here tonight. We saw you up at the front really this entire race. Came down between you and the 11 there on that final restart with roughly about 8 laps to go. What little bit more do you think you needed to have Pikes Peak offer you here tonight to be able to, first off, get to his back bumper and then be able to make that pass for the win?
Clean air. That's what I needed. I was just so tight in the dirty air. I could get within about 3/10, and then that was it. I was sliding the nose after that.
Jess brought up the point about back at RTG Motor Speedway, a race that we covered for you guys a couple of weeks ago, how you were one of the drivers that were able to go up there and utilize that second groove, especially on corner exit, get some good straightaway speed. Now, we saw a couple of drivers, including the 11 of Supka, use the second groove here today, but it seemed like you had to be very careful not to overstep the cushion. Was that something you think you might have been able to utilize there in those final laps, or was that the slower way around the racetrack with the worn tires?
It was definitely a little bit slower because you did have to kind of be careful. You just, like you said, you overstepped it just a little bit and you were slamming the wall. And pretty much, I think a lot of people might have went up there just because their front end was sliding. The dirty air was treacherous here today.
Jeremy, I saw you a couple of times on a couple of those little runs you had with I believe it was Robert in front of you on a couple of the restarts, especially like toward the latter part of the restarts where they were kind of stacked up and all. I saw you just riding and playing around with the back of Robert's car, just bumping him. I mean, you guys gave Supa a little bit of space, I believe, at this point when he was warping, according to what Robert was letting us know. But I mean, throughout that time, were you just playing around with Robert, just like bumping him a little bit? Like were you worried that you were going to bump him a little bit too much and get him sideways, or was it able to be careful enough to save the machine no matter what?
Oh, I was definitely just playing around with him. You know, me and Robert race together a lot. We have a lot of fun racing each other, and that was just my way of saying, "Hey, how you doing?" And these bumpers are pretty square, so I didn't even think about it upsetting his car at all, and I'm pretty sure it never did.
I mean, we saw a couple of drivers like go right near that little apron area and have an issue, and we saw who, I don't remember who it was. I think it might have been the 42 early on, Seth, if I'm not mistaken, lose it and just pretty much self spin. I mean, did you at all at any point go down there and hit that apron at all in these corners? I mean, Seth also mentioned there was like an elevation bump too. I mean, how did that play out for you?
I went down there a couple times and got I clipped it just a little bit, not on purpose, because it was so loose. But there was also a spot in the middle of turns 3 and 4 that it just seemed like there was a bump or something. It just kind of, if you hit it just right, it kind of threw your car a little bit sideways, and it actually helped you get a little better run off.
Were you able to think about moving forward? Like, you come in this race 10th in the points. Are you even looking at the chance to like possibly make a bid for that championship toward the end of this? I mean, you're pretty far out there, yeah, but I mean, are you going to try to make that little bit of an urge to get there, or are you just going to show up and race just to enjoy yourself like you have been?
Honestly, I missed the first 2 or 3 races, and I think every series this year, and it's kind of taken me out of the points in all of them. And it's been nice just showing up, no pressure, just going out here racing, having fun. So I've kind of enjoyed that aspect of it, and I'm not looking at points at all.
Well, Jeremy, a great run for you here tonight. You said with no pressure. You bring it home second place after a good qualifying effort as well. Kept your car up inside of the top 10 all day long, pretty much inside of the top 5 all day long, and you salvage a good finish as a result. We're going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some shout-outs.
All right. I appreciate you, Jessica and Seth, putting on this broadcast at Flatout Racing Network. Always the best. Such fun to watch, and I can't wait to go back and watch this one. I'm not talented enough as some of the other drivers to watch it while I'm racing. That would probably end up bad. And RTG, thanks for just sponsoring this race and having each one of these series. Every one of them so much fun, and the owners, the admins, and the drivers, as always, just the best league around. I love it.
Jeremy Jeffries, it brings it home second place here this evening at Pikes Peak, and will continue to move his way up through the top 10.
So real quick with the running order, Seth, we know that Jeff Supta did win the race. Jeremy Jeffries second, Robert Balcom third, Dante Ricky fourth, Frank Rivard fifth, Andre Majan sixth, Grant Wesley finishes with a great comeback in seventh, Sean Kerrigan eighth, Andre Terrace ninth, Bob Chance rounds up the top 10, and The unfortunate effect of Dave Melson with the older tires falling back into 11th position. 12th, Benoit Plord. 007 of Doug Cady finishes 13th. Chris Elliott 14th. Bob Dixon 15th. Orlando LeBoy secures himself another chance at running the that series. I think it was the Charger Series, correct?
Yes.
And he's able to maintain himself and save himself from elimination on that. Chuck McClure, 17th. Robbie Nices, 18th, running the special scheme on the lead lap for his daughter, 23rd birthday. Happy birthday to her. 57 is Stefan Martel. And those are the only cars that finished on the lead lap. 20 all the way down to 27th, all retired due to an issue or an incident, Seth. And that would be Ron Luzier, Richard Martin, Mike Rush, Terry Bauman, Jack DeSalt, Jim Gloud, and Brian Wolf. And finally, Zach Freeman, who unfortunately exited earlier with an issue. I mean, we had a really good race this whole time, but I think it's about time to go to victory lane. What do you think?
I think it is. Let's see if we can go down and get a word with Jeff Supka, who had to start this race from possibly the furthest back that he has all season long, the 9th position, but he was able to get to the front and stay there. Jeff, it's Justin Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, one thing that I want to document here, and maybe you can shed a little bit of light on it. We saw on those restarts, I observed that you maybe were one of the best drivers getting through 1 and 2 on those fresher tires. I don't think you were flat out, but it almost looked like you were. What was the secret of being able to find that speed in the first 2 corners, especially on those early restarts?
The cars are real loose. You cannot stay flat-footed, but just driving a loose car off the corner without spinning out. Yeah, it's you have to be aggressive, inside or outside.
Now, it was almost looking like you guys were going to be coming down to a fuel strategy race. You guys went back green with about 50 laps to go. We saw you leaders clutching quite a bit under that caution period. Obviously, a caution coming out with about 20 laps to go. You guys came down pit road. But how close were you guys on fuel? Were you good? Were you a couple laps short? Where were you gauge-wise in terms of fuel to the end?
I was 1 lap short, and I couldn't get that lap back. I'm sure they were fine, but I get horrible gas mileage for racing in this game. So
I mean, Jeff, I do want to get your opinion on this because I mean, Robert Balcom and Jeremy said they backed off of you when you were having a warp issue a little earlier on when they got close to you. Early on in the race, though, when we saw you up near the front, you ran down the 27. You were dogging him for a while. I mean, were you really pushing it that hard early on to get up there, or like what was your strategy when you were trying to close in on the leader several times? Because we saw you get up there and then you kind of started to fall off and then pretty much maintain yourself away from the 27 of Andre Marjan when he had the lead.
Yeah, I was driving semi-hard until I got to the 27, and I noticed he was going a little too hard in, and I knew he was using up his right front even more than I was, so I backed off a little bit. And I think when the caution came out, I was just about to pass him. I was within a lap of doing it, but after that, with the internet connection problems, I decided to not try to be around these guys, so I just kind of ran as hard as I could. And I knew I wasn't going to get the fuel mileage. I knew my tires were going to wear, and if I had to take an extra pit stop to do it, I was going to try to do that. But I was about where they were probably running about 70%. I was like 90.
Well, Seth and I commented on it a couple of times with your win tonight. You're going to catapult yourself closer to running for this championship with Dante Ricky, Robert Balcom, and Chuck McClure. And, you know, you're going to be closer on Dave Melson as well. I mean, with everything going on, I have to ask, I mean, is this starting to weigh on your mind that you have a shot to get this championship? Is that what you're really gunning for, or are you just taking it nice and steady, 1 race at a time like Robert Balcom is?
Well, yeah, I'm taking 1 race at a time, but I started the season missing 2 races. So I got 1 provisional and no points for a race. And then last week, the internet connection problems that I was having tonight, I finished second at Pocono, and I ended up warping into Chuck McClure with 2 laps to go, and I got sent back to 13th place. So I lost like 14 points last week alone just because of that internet. So Yeah, I think with 5 races left to go, I was thinking every time we do a race, I need to finish 5 or 6 points ahead of Dante. So that's my mindset.
Seth?
Yeah, I brought this up just before we ended up moving you up here, Jeff. The fact that your qualifying efforts this season have been on point. Outside of tonight's race, you have started on the pole position in all but 3 of the races that you've started. How tonight difficult was it not being up there at the start in that clean air, having to kind of work your way up through the field after starting this race from 9th place?
I take qualifying very seriously. Turn 2 and turn 4 wall disagreed with me today, so I wasn't up there. But a pit stall up in the top 3 spots are just, it's priceless for coming off the pits, coming off the line. You can usually gain a spot. If you're in those 3 spots, you can usually gain 1 spot just by being close to the end of the pit line.
Well, Jeff, obviously great momentum for you heading down the home stretch of this season. 5 races left to go, a third of the season still left to run. As just alluded to, you came into this race about 32 or 33 points back from the points lead. This win certainly going to help propel you up closer mathematically in the hunt for that championship. So we wish you luck with that. We're going to now turn the microphone over to you. Let's do some shout outs.
I want to thank Jeremy and Robert and these guys for racing me so clean and dealing with my issues. And main thing is RTG in general. Terry, Sean, David Cannon, whoever else I'm missing. Without them, we wouldn't have a place to race. And I just want to thank them and for giving us a place to do this.
Well, a great run for you here tonight, Jeff. Congratulations on your 2nd win of the season here in the Aero 88 series. Go enjoy it, and we look forward to seeing what you do here, as we said, down the home stretch.
All right. Thanks, guys. And thanks for the broadcasts. I've been watching other races too, even your personal ones, Seth.
Well, we appreciate it. And, obviously, we look forward to seeing what Jeff's able to do as we close in on the end of the season. I mean, just the points they're closing up a lot now with only 5 races remaining. Dante, Ricky, Robert, Balcom, they're still going to be in close proximity. Dave Melson might have been able to gain a little bit here on Chuck McClure. The 2 of them are going to be just on the outside looking into that championship battle. And of course, with this win, Jeff Suka now puts himself up there. So right now, it looks we've got about a 5-horse race with 5 races to go.
Yeah, but we just saw that anything can and will happen. We saw Grant Wesley, he made a huge comeback, but what if? And then that could happen to anybody. I know Grant's not in the championship hunt, but I'm just saying, if you want to look at it a different way, look at Chuck McClure. He had a huge hit that happened. You had Dave Melson, who tried a different strategy, did not pay off at the end. It's getting to a point where most of these drivers are going to become more desperate to get the position to where they're going to do anything to try to get that advantage. We're going to see people make more mistakes regarding pit strategy. But hey, that's how it goes. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to do something different if you're going to try to get a chance to win this, because you never know how it's going to end. It can be under caution. It could be a long green flag run. You can overcut and undercut other drivers. And, next week, according to the schedule, which I'm not really sure if that is what it's supposed to be, it's Phoenix 2005 Night Grip. And who were we just talking to? Supta, we had Nelson, and we had Dante, we've had Robert, and we had Jeremy. Remember the past time they ran there? Think about that stuff. They know how to get around that track. CTS physics there, CTS physics on Monday, CTS physics on Tuesday. They know what they got.
Well, the thing of it is, too, you bring up the schedule, and I was just looking at it as well. Whoever ends up winning the championship this season, I think that the title they have to get is Champion of the Tire Conservation, because you look at the tracks they were just at. We covered RTG Motor Speedway a couple of weeks ago. They were just at Pocono. Tonight at Pikes Peak. Phoenix, Nashville Super Speedway. Don't even get me started on how you have to conserve tires there. Homestead, Darlington, and Michigan. These are all tracks where it's all about saving those tires for the long run, having that speed from the start of the long run to the end of the long run, using strategy of when you want to use those 4 sets of tires. Really, this is a tire conservation series just based on the tracks that they've been to and the tracks that they're going to.
And I'm looking specifically because I think I've only ran Nashville SS one time, and I think that was in a different league, Seth, with you, I believe. I'm not really sure if that was the same one I'm thinking of. But looking ahead at the schedule, Homestead and Michigan, I'm looking at these as tracks still coming up. All that speed, and especially Darlington as well. You get all that speed in the straightaways, and then having to back off, getting the car loose, getting the car tight. I mean, we're talking about tire wear. Those tracks with the speed that you go in, and then having to back off in these corners like that, and let alone coming down, slowing as quickly as you can to pit road speed, especially at Darlington, that's going to be something they really got to be careful on.
Absolutely. It's going to be a tough one for those drivers, especially with the fact as well. Darlington, very much like Pocono. Both ends of the racetrack, not the same at all. Nashville's going to be a tough one for these drivers. And you brought up the point, too, with Homestead and Michigan. With the CTS physics, the draft is going to come into play hugely with the long straightaways at both the 1.5 mile and the 2 mile racetrack. And of course, Michigan is where the championship is going to be decided as well. So it's going to be a mixture of utilizing the draft and tire conservation to decide that championship trophy.
Yes, and I mean, if any indication is what we've seen the past couple times we've done broadcasts, especially tonight, they're not going to settle and just ride around just to, okay, yeah, we're going to get some points, we're going to get some points. They're going to go for it. We saw that tonight with the track position. They got to a certain point where hey, it's go time, and they did not care. We saw 4 wide tonight, Seth. We saw drivers come from lap down to come back up near the battle. I mean, points changed, positions have changed regarding the standings. It's an all-out brawl at this point for these next 5 races that they're going to have. And I mean, we got a lot on tap too with our broadcast coming up as well, especially with RTG as well.
Yeah, we definitely do. We got the Talladega Challenge that we're going to be covering again tomorrow night. They're obviously closing down their regular season, getting ready to put their playoff grid together. Next week, we've got Bare Bones and Winston Cup Series that we're going to be covering. And I'm pretty certain, I would have to double check on this, but I'm pretty certain that we are actually covering the season finale here for the Aero 88 Series as well at Michigan. So we're going to be able to find out who the champion's going to be. And Pikes Peak tonight definitely played its part. No doubt that the next 5 races, or the next 4 races, I should say, are going to play their part leading into that Michigan race. And who knows, with the way it's looking right now, based on how those races go, we could have 5 drivers in the vicinity of less than 10-point separation when we get to that Michigan championship battle.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we got so many good drivers. And certain drivers that we don't even expect to see up there at the end. We have Andre Majan. We have Frank Rivard. We have Zupta, Balcom. We have Nelson. I mean, we know that these drivers are going to be up near the front. And then some of these drivers who we don't really talk about, like we said earlier, Andre Cheris. Where did he come from? Stefan Martel, near the end before the incidents happened, he was up there in the top 10. Where are these drivers coming from? It's clear, it's obvious, and it's right in front of your face that you race over here, it elevates your game. We talked to Dante a few weeks ago when he was able to clinch the overall title picture for I don't remember what series it was, whether it was Bare Bones or Winston Cup 98, Seth, but it elevates your game. And the higher you elevate, the more competitive and more aggressive it is going to be with these drivers.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that, and very well said. I mean, folks, our coverage here tonight from Pikes Peak has come to a close, but as just alluded to, we got a full week still to finish out here on Flatout Racing Network. Tomorrow, we determined the playoff grid for the Talladega Challenge here on RTG. The Fuel IndyCar Series, they're going to be going to Watkins Glen as their season continues to wind down. We crowned champions on Friday and Saturday. The Rapid Fire Pizza National Series runs on Friday. The Veterans Forum War Cup Series, I should say, runs on Saturday. We crowned champions on that doubleheader weekend at ISM. And we also determined the final 4 for the FTF Grand National Series as they're going to be running their final elimination race at Martinsville. So a lot of stuff on the line for a lot of the series coming up here to finish out this week.
A lot of feelings are going to be hurt, and a lot of questioning yourself is going to come into play with a lot of these series closing out their series into the playoffs and the championships.
Absolutely. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to cover all of that during the course of the remainder of this week. But a great one here tonight at Pikes Peak. Jeff Supka takes the checkered flag in the RTG Aero 88 series. Jess, appreciate you joining me here tonight. Looking forward to when we come back here for that season finale at Michigan.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. I mean, so far the season's been great. It's been great to broadcast over here with RTG and everyone who's associated with it over here that puts it up and allows us to be able to bring the coverage that we have. I mean, it's just been great this whole season from what I can tell. And I mean, I raced on the Thursday night, so I don't know how it is to you guys when we race over there, but I mean, it's just been great broadcasting from what I can tell from my own point of view.
We hope that you guys enjoyed our coverage here this evening as well. For Jessica Shelton, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night as you've been watching another broadcast tonight, courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.